Roll call to my left, please.
William Pearlstein.
Jan Conacy.
Edith Heron.
Mark Saunders.
I'm Barry Brandt, and we are waiting for Fred Townsend. Hopefully, he should be along here shortly. Our rules require that owners of properties within 200 feet of the property in question are notified of the variance request. And was the meeting and public notice properly posted and the public notified?
City Hall and on the portal on November 14th. It was amended on, and it was amended on November 18th.
Thank you.
And reposted. I don't have my complete folder here, but I can verify that the public notices were sent out in a timely fashion. Mailings were sent out to property owners within 200 feet, and signage was posted on the property.
Thank you, Ann. And I know we received correspondence for our case at 15.5 Stockley Street and 69 Lake. And I see that we had a late-breaking one, so everyone on the board, please look at that letter as well. Again, that's for, I said 69 Lake, excuse me, 69 Park. If you get a chance to review that. And I know we're going to wait for Mr. Townsend to discuss the notice of decision for the Bellhaven, so we'll wait on that and come back to that. And were there any minutes to approve? I don't think we have any, okay? And let's move on. Okay, so let's get started on our cases today. Pursuant to Section 270-74 of the city's zoning code, the Board of Adjustment is authorized to grant variances that are not contrary to public interest if a literal interpretation of the code or regulation will result in an exceptional practical difficulty to the owner, so that the spirit of the zoning ordinance is observed and provided that such relief may be granted without substantially impairing the intent of the code. Today we have 3 cases to hear. The board will apply the quick check factors that Delaware law recognizes as guidance for boards of adjustment. Under Delaware law, an applicant for an area variance must prove that the requirements create an exceptional practical difficulty. To determine whether an exceptional practical difficulty exists, the board must weigh the following 4 factors. 1, the nature of the zone where the property lies. 2, the character and use of the immediate vicinity. 3, whether removal of the restriction on the applicant's property would seriously affect the neighboring properties and their uses. And finally, whether failure to remove the restriction would create an exceptional practical difficulty for the owner in relation to the owner's efforts to make normal improvements to the property. This standard is satisfied only when the difficulties alleged by the owner are practical rather than theoretical and exceptional rather than routine. Everyone who wishes to speak today will be required to give their testimony under oath. I will ask our counsel, Mr. Townsend, to administer the oath. We don't have a court reporter, so please, Ann has to put together the transcripts. Please keep your voices up. Speak only one person at a time, no crosstalk. And if any time the technical team or the board feels we are not getting an accurate recording, we will just simply stop and remind the speaker. I would like to know, just by a show of hands, if there is anyone here today who wishes to speak to any of our cases. Just, okay, we have a few. Okay, thank you. We will swear you in, and public commentary should be limited to 5 minutes or less. After the applicants and the public have finished speaking, we will close the public participation portion of the meeting, and no further public comments will be heard as the board will discuss each case. And I want to let the public know that from time to time you may see board members using an electronic device. I want to reassure you that they are only looking at diagrams that have been submitted. They are not communicating with any outside parties. So let's get started on our first case today. Well, we have Fred here. Welcome, Fred. Do I have
I apologize.
no problem. We had a question whether there was a motion to hear 104 Scarborough first, or whether we just follow the agenda. And I know the board has to make that motion and to adjust the agenda, so I don't know, have you any input on that?
So during the course of the adoption of the agenda, you can alter the order of affairs if you choose to.
Okay. Well, I would then ask for a motion if the board wants to hear 104 Scarborough first.
I move we hear 10 Scarborough first.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we're going to get started again, like we said, with 104 Scarborough. We have heard this case before, so at first I'm going to turn it over to our building inspector, Matt, and we'll go from there.
Allow me a brief moment to readjust here, if you will, please. All right. Good afternoon and happy Monday, Board of Adjustment. Before you today is case number 102412. The previous application number for this, recall that this has been heard before. The application at that time was 0423-05. This application is for 104 Scarborough Avenue. The applicant is Walls Apartments LLC at 246 Rehoboth Avenue, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware 19971. The owners are listed as the same. The applicants seek relief from the following: 27022, minimum lot dimensions A3. The nature of the request is as follows. The applicant is seeking a variance to 27022, minimum lot dimensions A3. Can fully contain within a rectangle at least 4,000 square feet in area, and with its shortest side measuring at least 48 feet. The property is located at 104 Scarborough Avenue and is situated in the R1 residential district. The property is listed in Sussex County tax records as tax map number 334-14.17, 351.00. The parcel is an irregularly shaped parcel and contains approximately 28,558 square feet overall. Some background information for you. The applicant is seeking to partition the existing property into 4 parcels with permissions from the Planning Commission. The application is in advance of a PC meeting to secure a variance in the event the commissioner votes in favor of the proposed subdivision. The applicant seeks relief from the following provisions: 27022, minimum lot dimensions A. No new lot shall be created, nor shall any existing lot be changed in size or shape unless each new or changed lot, 3, can fully contain within it a rectangle of at least 4,000 square feet in area, and with its shortest side measuring at least 48 feet. As shown on the submitted documentation, when the new parcels are created via subdivision, the parcel located to the northernmost point of the proposed subdivision will create an irregularly shaped parcel. This parcel will not contain a 4,000 square foot rectangle, as this provision requires, and shall require a variance for its creation. The conclusion is, because the applicant intends to move forward to the PC for a major subdivision request of the existing parcel, and the request creates a parcel that does not meet the requirements of the noted code section, the applicant is requesting a variance so that the proposal may move forward. Questions?
I have some, of course, but
Well, okay.
yeah, go ahead.
Whoever wants to go
ahead.
for it.
No, I just want to ask Fred something.
I do too.
Okay.
It's probably the same question.
Essentially, we have literally heard this entire case before. I don't believe, unless somebody else caught it, that there are any new documents.
That's what I was going to ask the
Okay.
building inspector. Let's.
Okay, go ahead.
Should I go ahead then,
ahead.
Jan?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So as far as you know, is this the exact same building inspector report as September 2023?
Yes, this is the exact report, and you're hearing it because the applicant has let expire the permission to move forward.
Right. It seems to be all of the same materials, everything, all the, everything that was appended, even the tab 7 that was mentioned in Bill mentioned tab 7 in his motion that was carried, and that's still tab 7 in this in this set of documents. Has anything at all changed from the city's perspective or anything else that you've heard, Matt, about this case?
Just the date.
Just the date. So now I have a couple questions for Fred. May I do that, or do you want to, and see if anybody else has questions for the building inspector first?
I have no questions for Matt.
No do I.
Okay, then I have some questions for Fred. Is the date of authorization the date that the variance is granted, i.e. the Board of Adjustment meeting date, or the date the NOD is actually signed? Because the strictures talks about the date of authorization a couple of times in 270-77.
So it's the date the decision is signed would be the effective date of the date that the decision is executed would be the effective date.
So it's the date of the NOD,
Yes, not the date of the
not the
hearing.
date of the hearing. And my question is, if we were willing to reapprove the situation, how would we construct a motion to re-grant the variance with time period specifics? Mr. Hutt suggested in his letter a wording of within 45 days of the NOD. Is that, do you know what I'm speaking of here? There's a sentence that where he suggested wording.
On page 85.
Yeah, I have it here. This variance will expire if the, thanks, Bill. This variance will expire if the applicant fails to apply for subdivision review within 45 days of the notice of decision. That's wording that Mr. Hutt suggested in his letter to us, excuse
I
me.
believe that's from the ordinance, the amended ordinance. Is that right? The
I believe that's
45
correct,
days.
yes.
Yes.
So, so that's the correct wording. It's the advisable wording. Are there any pros and cons to yes to use that wording, no to use it? Or would, and how would we do that? And how do we reference Bill's original, or do we, his original motion? Went back to the minutes, and Bill made a motion contingent on tab 7.
Can I piggyback on that?
Of course.
There's also 270-77, which simply says that we can grant a 90-day extension, period.
But that's already passed.
That's passed.
Oh,
It's
okay.
passed from, that's why I asked about the date of authorization. We're way past that now, because,
I'm understanding it then, okay.
so since I have not been on the board when we've had anything like this before, so I don't know how to proceed, so I'm going to back here and ask you, Fred, how do we handle this?
So I think if there were an abbreviated way for us to proceed, we would have identified that. We did try, all the parties tried to see if there was some kind of methodology for avoiding the necessity of holding another hearing. And I think the conclusion is that we've got to create another record. Now, and that means we have to proceed, the applicant needs to state their case, and the public needs the opportunity to weigh in. There was a question asked earlier if there was anyone here who wished to speak today during the public hearing. If we could be a little bit more specific, is there anyone here who's not part of the applicant team on this particular application that wishes to be heard from? And again, that's with regard to 104 Scarborough. Any hands raised? I don't think so. So no. So I think what we have to do, I think the effect of our action that we took earlier on this one is completely negated by the absence of time. So consequently, I think we need to hear from the applicant. The applicant can state his case. Now, the applicant understands that this is the same group of people here, made a very thorough application originally, I think can be more brief, be more responsive, or be responsive to any questions that you have if this group wishes to delve into any particular areas. But in the absence of that, I think we can move more quickly than we were able to previously, and we might be able to otherwise.
So there's no ditto.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
No.
Because we discussed it extremely thoroughly at the time.
Right.
And looked at every possibility.
That's right.
And came to a conclusion with which we were comfortable, and it wasn't that long ago. And as you said, it's the same people exactly, and the same situation. We've just heard from the building inspector that there's no change in the materials. So I'm,
Is there a reason, Fred, that the board couldn't ask the city, ask all the parties, which is the city and the applicant, whether they would simply ask us to incorporate the entire record of the prior hearing into this hearing, um, since we are all familiar with it. And I don't see why we can't, that record is in writing.
And on tape.
And add that to the motion.
And simply incorporate the entire hearing as the record of this proceeding, and then close it, and then ask for discussion by the members, and then have a motion about how to proceed. But since we are all familiar with the record and it's all in front of us, I don't think that there is a requirement that it be physically, that has to be repeated on the record. The record, we will say that the record of the prior hearing constitutes the factual record for this hearing.
So I think that actually could work. I do think the applicant needs to bless that as a process because, so if and we've got an indication that there's no one here that wishes, other than the applicant, to enter anything into the record. I think if Mr. Hutt and his client are comfortable with that, if you would like to take the microphone or take a seat up here and tell us at this point that you're comfortable with that, because technically speaking, if there were a challenge, the manner in which we're proceeding could create an issue. And if that's a risk you're willing to take, then I think this board is, feels very comfortable with the matter. This board's rules, and I should say by ordinance, dictate that our decisions expire after, I believe it's just
6 months.
6 months.
6 months.
And that this board is authorized to grant an extension,
One extension.
one extension of another
90 days.
90 days. That is a briefer period than I have seen in other, or applicable to other boards of adjustment.
Actually, I think your initial approval was good for 1 year in reference to the Bellhaven. That got changed about a year ago, so that your first initial approval is good for a year with the ability to extend for a year. Just want to make that clear.
Okay, so the board's authorized to take into consideration a particular application and actually grant a lengthier period of time. But in the absence of speaking to that, I think it's a 6-month plus 30-day period before the applicant needs to take advantage through some affirmative step of any variance that they've been granted. Yes?
I just have, real quick, I just want to reiterate, some of the people who were concerned about this and who live in that neighborhood went through and they looked at everything and they made a decision not to come today because everything was exactly the same. And so, if we started over again, I think they might want to be here. And so I think, I never thought we would start, frankly, that we would start over again, since it's exactly the same. So,
Well, I think we have to open the record if it's just long enough to have
Let
the
Mr. Hutt
applicant.
make the
Okay.
decision,
And then we can close it.
Okay. So,
We'll turn it over to the
Yeah,
applicant now.
to Mr. Hutt.
Good afternoon. For the record, David Hutt of the law firm of Morris James. Sitting to my left and your right is Bill Lingo. He's a principal with Walls Apartments LLC. And I'm not trying to throw a fly in the ointment, and I'm getting daggers from people like Mr. Robertson sitting behind me at the moment when I say that. But the only thing that I would disagree with that I heard is I disagree that the approval lapsed. It doesn't fit any of the categories that are referenced in your code. However, I don't think it's a point worth arguing, because Mr. Lingo doesn't want to spend the next 2 years in litigation over that point, which is why we're here this afternoon. Because what the code says is you have a specific time period for a site plan review, or you have the 6 months and 30 days if you're going to have a demolition permit or a building permit. Well, it's not a site plan review that we're going to be seeking at the Planning Commission. We also don't need a building permit or a demolition permit, so we're none of the above. And frankly, we filed within 6 months. So we hit the 6-month mark with respect to the first part of that. But when we filed the subdivision application with the Planning Commission, this issue was raised. And again, for the sake of just trying to move the matter forward, this application has been refiled. As the board has noted, it is identical in every respect to the original application that was filed. The record that I would be creating this afternoon with the assistance of Mr. Lingo would be identical to the record that was created September 20, let me get the date right, September 26th
26th,
of
2023.
2023. And so if the board is content with adopting its former record, it's one of the reasons why I included as exhibits to my letter the minutes from the board's prior meeting, was with the hopes, and there was even a hint in my letter that I was hoping that this could take a minimal amount of time on the board's agenda, and I'm hopeful that that is the case this afternoon. I'm content to not present a new case, but to rely upon the record from the September 26, 2023 case as the case for this matter. If the board needs to hear something further, I'm happy to put something on the record. We left the tabs the same so that it could all be the same motion, and the only thing that we need is a time period specified with respect to a subdivision review as compared to a site plan, a building permit, or a demolition permit. And the other suggestion I would have is that perhaps we have Mr. Lingo sworn in by Mr. Townsend, and that he affirmed that everything that was true and correct of the record that was given, and he was here at the last meeting, remains true and correct and is the application.
Ready for that?
Yeah, I would like that. And we still probably have some questions for you, but.
Mr. Lingo, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Your attorney has a question for you, I think.
I do. Mr. Lingo, were you here for the September 26, 2023 hearing for this variance for 104 Scarborough Avenue?
Yes.
And do you recall the testimony and the record that was presented to the Board of Adjustment during that hearing?
Yes.
Would your testimony today be the exact same as it was during that hearing?
Yes.
And do you adopt your testimony that you gave during that hearing and the statements that were made by your attorney, myself, during that hearing?
Yes.
That's all the questions I have for Mr. Lingo.
Okay. I do have some questions. So I wanted, I noticed in the previous presentation, and I really like Bill's idea of making sure the previous hearing is included as our evidence. So things that we said, there was commentary about, you would look to preserve trees that would still, hold case. So everything that you have agreed to in that previous case would still hold true. And I'm very curious as to if you can walk us through from January 3rd, which I think is when the NOD came out, to today. Can you again summarize, almost calendar-wise what happened as to why this was missed?
Sure. Well, again, with the caveat that we don't think anything was missed, but taking
that?
with that giant salt shaker, from January forward, the Planning and Zoning Commission's application was finalized. There were some additional details with respect to the various surveys that are required for the subdivision application. Those were procured over that time. The Planning Commission's application process was completed during that time, and the application was filed. Then after it was filed, there was conversations between Mr. Janis and his office and myself regarding timeliness. Those conversations actually ended up involving Mr. Townsend as well. In addition, the former city solicitor at this time, there was a number of discussions about the timing and such. And by the time those discussions were occurring, assuming that you applied even the 6-month standard, we were beyond the time period that you could get an extension for a period of time. And that's when the decision was made, let's not quibble over who's right or wrong on which section of that code applies. Let's go back to the application hasn't changed. The outcome that's desired is the same. The configuration of the lots is the same. It is tab 7. And so let's just put that issue to bed so that we can move solidly forward with the Planning Commission and complete the subdivision process. That prompted the letter, the cover letter, and the new or amended application, which is identical to the original application that was then filed with this board.
Okay, thank you. One of the reasons why I was asking that, was there anything that we did as a board that caused this delay?
No, there is nothing that the board did.
Okay.
And frankly, I'll speak more philosophically than anything. I think if anything, the city should should amend the provision so that it includes something with respect to subdivisions. If somebody seeks, it talks about site plan and it talks about building permits and demolition permits. But a subdivision plan is none of those things. And I know they just amended that section of the code, but that's what happens when you amend codes. You realize that perhaps there could have been one more reference to another part of the city's entitlement process. And so if there's anything, the code in my mind should be clarified as to which of those things would apply. But no, I'm not intending to say that the board did anything wrong or could have done something different.
That's what I wanted to hear. Okay. And I think that, just a curiosity question. Last year, you were going to investigate the existing old home there. What was the result of that? Not that that has anything to do with this
Oh,
decision.
the original, you mean the farmhouse? The
Yeah,
original
the original
farmhouse?
house. You guys were researching it.
It's still there, and I don't know if anything has progressed.
Are you referencing the one on the corner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've engaged architects, and we're waiting for their results, and the intent is to save the property and the building.
Thank you. It has nothing to do with the case, but thank you. That was all my questions.
I have no
Mark?
questions, no.
I have nothing else.
Okay, Jan?
No,
I
nothing.
have no questions.
Okay, may I get a motion from the floor? From the board, excuse me.
Are you going to make the same, your motion?
Oh, no, before I do that, and there is no, just double checking, no public, no one wishes to speak for or against? Okay.
Would it help to read from the minutes the motion that Bill made before? Would that help us construct? Would that help? Do you have that in front of you, Bill, or do you want me to read it, or?
On which tab was it?
No, it isn't. I got it from the minutes. Maybe it was on that too. I looked them up.
It was tab C.
Yeah,
is
it's
what I
page
thought.
99 it's page 99 out of 148 to prep for this meeting. Not kidding, guys, not kidding. It's page 99. On top of the page, William Pearlstein made a motion.
Might be easier if you were to read it.
Yeah.
Should I read it first while you're looking? Okay, it was your baby there.
Rather than making a motion, let me just
Sure.
talk with everybody. And I think what I'm thinking of doing is doing two things. One, to have the board agree to incorporate by reference the entirety of the September 2023 hearing. Both the contents of the hearing and all the exhibits. And so that would constitute the record that is in front of us. And then I think for ease, what I would do is reiterate the motion that is on page 99 of the agenda. And then we need to add what Mr. Hutt has requested in terms of the effective date, unless Fred tells us that he sees a problem with that request.
I have none. No problem.
So, Bill, you're going
What
to
do you
do
mean
two
by the
motions?
effective date?
No, I think it's a motion
That incorporates?
I think what I'm thinking of is that my motion would have three parts. That the board agreed to incorporate by reference the entirety of the September 26, 2023 hearing. Two, that I'm to incorporate the motion that the board had previously made, had approved, that as is reflected on page 99 of the agenda. And three, that our notice of decision provide that the effective date is not to just adopt Mr. Hutt's language. I'm so glad I'm not practicing law anymore.
So moved. We have a,
So now we have to make that motion.
so I believe that can constitute a motion, so
Yeah.
how about a second?
Second.
Second.
Oh, you, okay, go ahead.
Okay, we're going to go to a vote. Mark?
In favor.
And your reasons?
Because there have been no significant changes since the initial presentation a year ago.
I'm in favor as well. We thoroughly looked at this for a couple hours, as I recall, and all the quick check factors were met. We made the best decision at the time, and I still feel, after looking through all of this again, that we stand by that decision. So I stand by it as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Jan?
I stand by the decision. It was thoroughly investigated, and nothing new has been added. And this is exactly the same case we're hearing again. And so I stand by the decision that we made last time.
Bill?
The prior application met all the quick check factors and believe that this renewed application does as well.
I too believe that, we've met, the applicant has met all the quick check factors and agree with everything that's been stated here. So that's a 5-0 vote in favor, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you, everyone, for allowing us to do that early. We're going to move on to our next case, which is 15.5 Stokely Street, and I'm going to turn it over to Matt first.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, Matt, whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you, Chair. And it's still Monday, and we're still happy to be here. Before you today is case number 0924-09. The location for this project is 15.5 Stokely Street. The applicants are Howard and Barbara Katz, seated to my left, of 5115 Waukesha Road and Bethesda, Maryland, 20816. The owners are the same. The subject today for the variances are sections 270-25 rear yards, sections 270-26 side yards, section 270-42 structures and required yard areas, and section 270-82 enforcement of chapter plot plan. Nature of request is as follows. The applicants Henry and Barbara Katz are seeking variances to 270-25 rear yards and 270-42 structures and required yard areas to allow to remain a recently constructed patio that encroaches into a required rear and side yard setback. The property is located at 15.5 Stokely Street, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 19971, and is situated in the R1 residential district. The property is listed in Sussex County records as tax map number 334-20.06-13.01. The parcel is a typical 50 by 100 rectangular shaped lot containing 5,000 square feet. Background information is as follows. An application for building permit was submitted on January 26, 2023 to construct a 16 by 17-foot concrete patio with flagstone overlay in the rear yard of the property. I've included some exhibits, and that would be my building inspector Exhibit A. The application was processed and a building permit number 5028, was issued on February 13, 2023. The permit was then picked up on March 1st, 2023, and that is shown in Building Inspector Exhibit B. At time of permit pickup, the individual that paid for and received permit acknowledged by initialing the required areas that, quote, all work shall be done within building setbacks and lot coverage compliance per approved survey. Again, Building Inspector's Exhibit B. Documents were provided at permit issuance, giving further guidance on the area that the proposed construction could be placed in a conforming manner. The permit reviewer indicated that the construction would have a side setback requirement of 6 feet minimum and a rear yard setback requirement of 15-foot minimum. My building inspector Exhibit C. A closeout inspection indicated that the patio was encroaching into the rear setback and the side. The applicant was notified that they could either move the patio to comply with the 15-foot rear setback and side 6-foot side setback requirements, or seek a variance from the Board of Adjustment. And so that leads us here to what variance they're requesting today. The applicants are seeking relief from the following ordinances. 270-25 rear yards. A rear yard shall be provided on every lot, the minimum depth of which shall be as prescribed in the following table. I have just taken out the section that relates here. We are in an R1 district, and the minimum depth of rear yard is going to be 15 feet for that district. The recently constructed patio encroaches into the rear yard setback by 13.6 feet, according to the submitted survey. Therefore, the patio requires a variance of 13.6 feet to allow the patio to remain as constructed. 270-25 side yards. 2 side yards shall be provided on every lot as prescribed in the following table. Well, again, R1 district. They have a minimum width of 1 to be 6 feet and a total aggregate of 16 feet. The recently constructed patio encroaches into the side yard setback by 3 1/2 inches, and that was discovered as I was making this report up. So that information is not necessarily reflected in totality of the applicant's submission. Again, the recently constructed patio encroaches into the side yard setback by 3 1/2 inches, according to the submitted survey. Therefore, the patio requires a variance of 3 1/2 inches to allow the patio to remain as constructed. That's in my building inspector's Exhibit D. 270-42 structures in required yard areas. No structure and no part of a structure shall be erected within or shall project into the required yard area, except as follows: A, cornices, eaves, gutters, chimneys, steps, or entries projecting from the main structure no more than 24 inches. And B, fences and screens subject to the provisions of Section 270-43. Because the construction patio does not meet the requirements of the section and cannot be considered any of the allowable exceptions, the patio requires a variance from the section to remain as constructed. Again, Building Inspector Exhibit D. And 270-82 is kind of a catch-all. 270-82 enforcement of chapter plot plan. The building inspector shall enforce the provisions of this chapter. The building inspector shall require that the application for a building permit and the accompanying plot plan shall be submitted in paper form and in digital format acceptable to the city, and shall contain all of the information necessary to enable him to ascertain whether the proposed building or structure complies with the provisions of this chapter. In addition to the other necessary data, the plot plan shall show the location of all existing buildings or structures on abutting land within 50 feet of the side of the rear lines of the premises of the applicant. The structure constructed in the rear yard setback shown on the submitted survey is not zoning compliant. If the Board of Adjustment agrees that the variance request, approves the variance request, the submitted survey shall satisfy the requirement and this section no longer applies. However, if the variance request is unsuccessful, the applicant shall perform all necessary property revisions and submit a survey showing zoning compliance. The conclusion of that is, as constructed, the patio encroaches into the rear and side yard setbacks. For the construction to remain, the placement requires a variance to permit the location to encroach the rear setback by 13.6 feet and the side setback by 3 1/2 inches. Any questions?
Yes, we have a
Lots.
few. Yeah.
No problem.
So, Jan, we'll start with you.
Okay, I guess, I'm sorry, I got Ann. I'm assuming, since the contractor picked up the permit, as what I was reading from the other, that the contractor is licensed in the city of Rehoboth.
Correct.
Okay, so I don't, I'm trying to gather how this happened. And my understanding is if the contractor is licensed in Rehoboth, one would assume the contractor knew the code of where he can put something or not.
It's a safe assumption. Questions remain.
Okay. All right, I'm not going to ask. And who was the permit reviewer? Was that you or Corey, or was that somebody else?
That was Mr. Shinko.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm finished, Edie. I have more, but I'll go ahead.
Okay. this for you, Matt.
Yes, ma'am.
How does the building inspector's office look at an owner-prepared drawing such as the building inspector Exhibit C, the one that they submitted? Do you look at it as an exact set of specs, or is it a rough idea of what will be examined in full with the as-built survey and the final inspection?
That's a fantastic question. So we use basically two subjects of material, if you will.
Okay.
What the applicant provides to us,
Sure.
and then whatever we might have in our coffers as historic documentation. We then use those two sources of information to formulate our best guess, I guess, at what could be constructed out there, knowing that we have professional licenses, et cetera, verifying what's out on the site. So many times we have issued permits in knowing that a survey would be required at the end with the anticipation that the survey must be zoning compliant when it is surveyed or when it's submitted and or come down this path which we find ourselves in now.
Okay. But isn't it frequently the case, and I think you've just said that the as-built turns out to be different from some of the material that you were presented, particularly if it was owner presented, and that's why the building permit requires has wording that requires initialing the fact of compliance.
Yeah, so we I hate to say that it's a CYA, but it is a bit of a issuing of a permit with the understanding that we're doing so not necessarily, I don't want to say agreeing or acknowledging what the surveyor has provided because they are a licensed individual who signs and steals these documents to say that they're correct. But we build that catch-all in to say that, hey, we realize this construction is going on. At the end of this, prior to construction, mind your P's and Q's during the construction process, but you're going to have to prove that you're zoning compliant at the end of this.
Okay. So it doesn't really matter a lot if the finished patio, in this applicant's case, is somewhat different from the original description, or if it's the same, as long as it meets code at the time that it's finished.
We allow variations, small variations.
Because it could be a mistake, right? A
Right,
small measurement.
And for instance, let's just take a different subject matter. If somebody wants a different countertop than what they originally applied for in the construction process, or if a certain window isn't available at the time, we allow that kind of sort of small plan manipulation. But we generally, when we issue documents, we generally recommend that you adhere to those documents.
So I'm assuming that this is why the person who picks up the building permit must initial, all work shall be done within building setbacks and lot coverage compliance per the survey. And also, the other initialization is as-built survey showing lot coverages, distance of structures to property lines and tree placements required at final inspection.
That's
I
right.
think that's why you have that.
Yeah, we build that in for accountability.
Of course. And as far as you know, so Dana Cooper, the contractor, is the one who signed this. As far as we know, it was
I believe so.
okay. And just confirming that the rear yard is rather than 15 feet, it's 1.4 feet. Is this right?
So the patio encroaches into from the allowable building area.
Right. Instead of 15 feet, it's 1.4
It's 1
feet.
point, right.
And then the side yard is supposed to be 6 foot minimum, and it encroaches 3.5 feet, so it's
3.5 inches.
inches. I'm sorry, excuse
Yes.
me, I'm right. Thanks for the correction, everyone. Is the lot coverage all right on this, on their
Lot coverage is fine.
and natural area?
Yes, ma'am.
So they don't have anything else. That's all that I have for them. I have a number of questions for the applicant when we get there, perhaps one of my colleagues.
Mark, you have any?
Yes, I do. Am I correct that your Exhibit C, which was signed and approved by the city on 2/13/23,
Yes, I have that.
okay, all of those 4 red boxes were on there when it was returned to the applicant?
Yes, sir.
So they saw this before they started construction, because construction was started after 2/13/23.
And that document was issued at time of permit pickup as well.
Okay.
to the individual who picked that permit up.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question. Yeah.
Bill, any questions?
I had the same question on Exhibit C, so it's been answered.
Okay, I have Matt, at any time, I know you provided the exhibits, did the city provide documents that reflected that the patio was compliant above and beyond these?
The only documents that were issued by Mr. Shinko and myself, we have shown for this application. To my knowledge, no other documents were issued at the time of permit pickup or since then.
And at permit pickup, the receipts, I know they pay the check, the receipts that are provided are the blue, your Exhibit B building permit. Is Exhibit C and Exhibit A also done when the applicant pays?
Yeah, so Exhibit A is the actual application for building permit itself. That's our standardized form that gets submitted for every application across the board. And then B would be the blue placard that is issued as after we review. And then the C would be the documentation that was issued to the contractor.
And I guess my point is, at time of paying the check, yeah, we're good to go, come on in. Do we provide Exhibit A, B, and C?
Exhibit A is supplied to us by the applicant, so they don't get a copy of that. They should already have that. But B and C are returned.
Okay, I'm looking at like it says it's paid, checks paid, so.
Right.
I mean, everything's crossing the Ts.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, correct.
Okay. And okay, they were all my questions. So at this point, there's no other questions for Matt. We're going to turn it over to our applicant, and Mr. Townsend will swear you in.
So name and address for the record, please.
Barbara Katz, address at home, 5115 Waukesha Road, Bethesda, Maryland, 20816.
Okay. Ms. Katz, sorry. Ms. Katz, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, so what our typical order of business is to try and go with one witness at a time, and I can swear you in now. Do you have a question?
I don't, I'm not participating in the, in
my
this,
presentation.
Going to represent us. I might just show you a drawing once we get there, but that's all I'm doing. But you can swear me in case I need to say something.
Okay, name and address for the record, please.
5115 Waukesha Road, Bethesda, Maryland, 20816.
And your name again, please?
Howard Katz.
Mr. Katz, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Ms. Katz?
Okay.
Please make a presentation.
So, as we said, I'm Barbara Katz, and forgive me if I cough at some point in time. We're just recovering from some illnesses. We appreciate this opportunity to present our request for variance to the Board of Adjustment. We've submitted comprehensive written requests, so today I will do my very best to condense the details of our particular situation. We purchased 15.5 Stokely Street in 1989. For 28 years, our rear yard was inundated with bamboo from our side neighbor. In 2017, that property was sold to a developer, and much of the bamboo was removed. By 2021, we had finally fully conquered all the bamboo. We fenced the rear yard, and we embarked upon designing the garden. We were very, very excited. Both of us have been professionally involved in the construction industry in Maryland for over 35 years. Howard is a licensed architect and contractor, and I am a landscape designer and licensed contractor. So the patio design was carefully sited in the rear garden so as not to interfere with our 30-foot native holly and our prized 175-year-old white oak and its root systems. We wanted to finally provide our family and tenants with an attractive area for outdoor cooking, dining, and relaxing. Howard completed the scaled drawing 161-2A. What exhibit is that, his drawing, in all your information, his official drawing? Because you've talked about A, B, C.
So the exhibits that I've specifically referenced are ones that I provided. And you should have a copy of those either received or in the an embedment on the details.
Okay, well, I guess we'll get to that later. In any case, Howard did a scaled construction drawing in April of 2021. The drawing clearly shows the overall size and location of the patio in the rear yard. In late 2022, we contracted with Dana Cooper of Cooper Masonry and Sons, a well-known and very experienced licensed masonry contractor in the area. He is an exceptional mason. On January 4th, and this is according to our information, Mr. Cooper submitted to the Rehoboth Beach Permitting Department the rear patio construction drawing 161/2A, plus all the other documents requested by the department. On March 1st, 2 months later, Mr. Cooper returned to the permitting department, having been told the permit was ready. He paid the required fee. According to Mr. Cooper, he then received only 2 documents from the permitting department. He received building permit number 5028, issued February 13th, 2023, and the poster permit for display purposes, also issued February 13th, 2023. Both of these documents were issued, signed, and dated by the building inspector for the city of Rehoboth Beach. It is critical to note that no other City of Rehoboth permitting documents or non-conforming setback information was ever discussed with or issued to Mr. Cooper, our mason, and none of this information was ever conveyed or sent to us as the homeowners. As Mr. Cooper had obtained the approved permit, we all assumed that everything was in order to begin construction. For us as professional contractors, it's always been our experience that an inspector will clearly point out any problems, if they exist, prior to issuing the permit for a project. In the absence of any salient information from the Rehoboth Department of Building and Licensing, we had no reason to believe that there was any problem with our patio proposal. So construction commenced in March 2023 with the careful setting out of the patio in accordance with Howard's construction drawing. By mid-April, it was completed. The reinforced concrete patio has a flagstone finish and has been built at grade with a low seat wall. We started work on the plantings, and this will continue until we can establish a beautiful garden for ourselves and our visitors. Roughly 14 months later, on April 25th, 2024, we received an email from Joanne Perry requesting an as-built survey of our property in order to close out our building permit number 5028. We immediately contacted Simpler Surveying, who completed the survey and submitted it to us May 7th, 2024. On May 16th, Howard met at our house with Mr. Janis, the chief building official. Mr. Janis would not even look at our as-built survey. This was mystifying. He said, "We have a problem." Once in the rear yard, he verbally explained that the patio was in non-compliance, as the rear setback requirement was 15 feet. This was the very first time we had ever heard this information. And honestly, it was a massive shock. Howard was completely dumbfounded. Mr. Janis went on to say that we had 2 choices. We could demolish the patio, or we could apply for a variance at a cost of $1,000. And if we needed legal representation, the ultimate costs would radically escalate. Then on May 31st, 2024, Mr. Janis emailed us requesting that we immediately proceed with the variance application. Attached to this email were 4 PDF documents. The first PDF contained 2 documents which we had never seen before and which are critical to our request for a variance. Document 1 was the Mann Associates plat dated January 17th, 1990, which was created when we purchased the house. Mr. Cooper had drawn the approximate location of the patio onto the plat, and this was part of his submission for the permit on January 4th, 2023. But now, the plat had been modified by the permitting department with 4 red stamps, 2 of which stated the required setbacks. There was also an additional red stamp stating approved, City of Rehoboth Beach. This was signed and dated February 13th, 2023. The second document was a simple schematic sketch of the new patio done by Mr. Cooper, showing its overall dimensions with some written instructions dated January 4th, 2023. There was now also a red stamp with approved, City of Rehoboth Beach, signed and dated February 13th, 2023. Again, it is critical to understand that neither Mr. Cooper nor us had ever seen these stamped documents. They were not given to him at the time he picked up the permit on March 1st, 2023, nor were they ever emailed to us until this date of May 31st, 2024, 14 months after the permit had been issued. If a proposed project is not in compliance with current codes and setbacks, why would a building inspector sign off on the permit? If these issues were apparent to the Department of Building and Licensing when we submitted our documents for permitting, wouldn't it be normal procedure to definitively inform us of those issues? Quite simply, we would never have proceeded with our patio project if this information had been provided to us at the time we were seeking a permit. As professional contractors, we would never knowingly contravene building codes and setbacks. In terms of grounds for hardship, we have submitted this information to you in detail, but just to highlight a few considerations, our rear garden is very small, and it's dominated by the American holly. If Rehoboth denies our request for a variance and demands that we demolish the patio, we will not be able to rebuild it. We don't have the resources, and nor is there an alternative location in our very small garden that could be both compliant with the 15-foot setback, but also provide the usable outdoor space we've tried so hard to create for our family and tenants. Our property is surrounded by exceptions to the current setback ordinances. On the north side, our rear neighbor's single-story garage sits about 12 inches from our joint lot line. To our east, the neighbor's 2-story garage apartment looms over our garden and is 5 inches off our joint lot line, with the roof eave projecting over our lot line. On our west side, the neighbor recently installed a tool shed very close to our rear west boundary line, which is non-compliant with the setback. They did apply for and receive a variance for this structure. But this simply illustrates that all these neighboring structures project substantially above grade level, and they do not comply with the current setback codes. But we all live in harmony and we accept these anomalies. We believe that the location of our patio has no negative impact on any neighbor. Our patio is also at grade. It's wheelchair accessible, and it provides ample room for circulation. The positive response from our renters has been incredibly gratifying. They are so delighted to have a real outdoor space to use now on our property. And especially, we've had this response from those who've made our very small cottage their summer home for many, many years. Our neighbors love the view of our transformed property, and the birds and the pollinators are already thriving among the plantings. 2023 was the first time in over 30 years that we and our loyal tenants were able to truly enjoy and make use of our rear yard, relaxing and dining in a lovely space surrounded by a colorful garden. In conclusion, we thank you very much for giving our request for a variance serious consideration before voting, and we hope, we pray for a favorable outcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nice presentation. I'm going to start with questions from Bill, if you have any for the applicant. I can come back to you if you.
No, I'll start. You do acknowledge that you received Exhibit B, correct?
You'll have to clarify that, because
That's
we
the
never
blue-
got that information
You never got
about
any of
A,
it?
B, C, D. We just have what he sent to us in that one email, which is
No, but the Exhibit B is the permit itself.
Building
this.
permit.
Yeah.
That you did get.
Yes, we do have that.
And that does say on it that all work shall be done within the setbacks and the lot coverage compliance, and that's initialed.
Okay, so what you're saying is these are the initials?
Well, I guess what I'm asking, did you read the permit? You're a professional surveyor,
Well,
contractors.
it's important to understand that it's Mr. Cooper who received the permit. We did not receive this permit.
We didn't have it.
We never had it in our possession because he got it and told us that he had the permit.
Okay. Did you discuss with Mr. Cooper? You know, you're professional contractors. You discussed with Mr. Cooper what the rules were for Rehoboth. You're in Montgomery County. I used to live in Alexandria. Montgomery County has got large setbacks.
Well, I mean, to be
So
fair.
I'm trying to understand,
Yeah,
'cause
no,
you're
no.
asking for a variance on the basis that, A, the building officials did not tell you what the law was, and B, that you're relying on Mr. Cooper. And you're contractors, and I'm trying to understand what it is you thought the rules were, or whether you just said, I don't know anything about the rules, I'm going to rely totally on Mr. Cooper.
Well, we absolutely knew we needed to seek a permit. And because we designed the garden by a licensed architect to quarter-inch scale, and that was submitted when the permit was approved, we did make the assumption that it met with whatever requirements Rehoboth Beach had.
But did you discuss that with Mr. Cooper?
I don't even think it was necessarily a discussion, because he submitted the plans and he got the permit, and so we all just, I assumed that if it was completely non-compliant, they would have told him, and he was told nothing.
Well, it is Mr. Cooper's, I don't need to tell you as contractors, it's your responsibility if you have a license to abide by what the rules are. And I'm trying to understand whether you as professional contractors, having been subject to licensing requirements for many, many years by your own testimony, had any discussion with him about, are there any setback requirements? Is there anything in the Rehoboth rules that governs, as it does in Montgomery County, what you can have in the setback or not? In Montgomery County, as you know, they have setback requirements, and then there are rules about how much the patios can be in the setback. That's actually in the Montgomery County rules. I don't need to tell you
Yeah.
that because you both practice there. So no discussion as professional contractors with Mr. Cooper about, does Rehoboth have anything like that? Yes, sir.
Mr. Excuse me, my voice is a little
Take your
rough.
time.
Mr. Cooper was responsible for getting, for getting the permit. And I know that he actually went to the permit office more than once to do this over the 2-month period. But eventually, he got it. My drawing very clearly indicates where this patio is. It's clear, crystal clear. And so with the information that he had when he submitted the permit, for a permit, we assumed that once he got the permit, which was signed and dated and so on, that everything was good. I mean, when we've done this in Montgomery County and there's a problem, they would just say,
Go
no,
back to the drawing board.
Go back to the drawing board. So, no, we didn't question Dana Cooper. He said he's got the permit and we're good to go.
And what about the requirement for the final survey, which is also on the permit that you have there?
Well, we did that.
No, you didn't do it until the city asked you for it.
Well,
That is true.
that is true, and we had it done.
I understand, but you're coming to us for an exception.
Right.
And my problem is that you're both highly qualified contractors, understanding that there are all sorts of rules. And the fact is that the final survey, you didn't, again, as experienced contractors, you didn't say to him, okay, let's go for the final survey, let's get this wrapped up. The city had to come to you over a year later, even though that is standard process, and even though the building permit specifically says you need to have an as-is survey. So I'm trying to understand
We agree that's an
what
oversight.
went on here.
That's an oversight, but we actually did not have a copy of this. We, as the homeowners, Mr. Cooper had it. He didn't, the way he operates is a little bit different. He runs a very small company. It's not a big organization. It's quite difficult to communicate on other levels, but he's an excellent mason. So he's not like all jacked up communication-wise. And
He doesn't have a real big PR machine,
no,
it sounds like.
no. And so we lacked that information. And I'm just telling you that in all truthfulness. So,
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, the first time we saw this was when Mr. Janis sent it to us in May of 2024.
Okay, understood. I don't have any further questions, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to, real quick, if he came in to the office and signed it, did you ever ask him why, in your research and preparation, why he did not pick up a copy? I mean,
a copy of what?
of Exhibit B, the approved application, where he clearly signed, it said, yes, I will do this to, or we will do this to code.
So I think the problem with this is that Mr. Cooper works in a lot of different jurisdictions in Delaware. And it is his experience that when a permit is issued, it's issued because it's been vetted. The plans have been vetted and they have, passed muster. So when he received this along with, this post which says it's again signed by the building inspector and it needs to be posted, I don't, he did not see any other information except for these two things.
But he
Can I
signed.
He's
Can I,
Yes.
as
Yeah.
a
Go
matter
back
of
to you, Bill.
order, Fred, hearsay is okay, but I really think that it's not right for the Katzes to be telling about, it's one thing, and I'm plain lawyer here. Hearsay is basically Mr. Cooper should be here if we're going to talk about what Mr. Cooper said or thought. If Mr. Cooper had a specific discussion with you and told you something, I think we generally would say that that's okay to hear. But I don't think it is right that the record should reflect the Katz's understanding what they think Mr. Cooper thought, because I don't think I think that really gets beyond
point.
what we
Yes.
would normally
Okay.
consider to be evidence here.
But I will just confirm that Mr. Cooper told us that these were the two documents he received,
Okay,
and he didn't
understood.
receive anything else.
Thank you.
And we
So when it comes to these concepts that were just raised, the board does not subscribe to the rules of evidence that a court would. However, the board is totally not just authorized, but encouraged to apply the appropriate weight to the evidence and to take into consideration that hearsay is not entitled to the same weight as direct testimony might be.
Thank you.
May I go ahead, Barry, or did Jan want to go?
Jan was next.
Okay, go ahead, Jan.
The question that I asked at the beginning that I asked Matt about whether Mr. Cooper was licensed in Rehoboth, there was a reason for that. Because contractors, unfortunately, there are many contractors who do work in Rehoboth that are not licensed, as Matt will probably, we all know that. That's why I asked if he was licensed, because typically a licensed contractor who does work in Rehoboth, because it's not cheap to get a license, they know the rules and regulations. And so it'll, you know, as I read all of this, and I listened to your testimony, which I had already read, what I see is you got a problem with Mr. Cooper. At least that's what it looks like to me. I can't, I don't see, you know, any other issue. I mean, I have building permits, and, you know, I always think the city should come investigate lots more during the course of a job than they do, but we don't have the staff to do that, and we have signs, you know, the contractors know when at what point in their construction that a building inspector will come and view it. But I feel like I'm being asked to correct something that your contractor made a mistake. And that's, you know, that's kind of my sense, and I'm, you know, so, and when you brought up the point, you know, Rehoboth is full of grandfathered properties. And, you know, I'm sure in your neighborhood, there's tons of places, there is in mine too, that are grandfathered. But when you want to do new construction of anything and the code changes, and I've been affected by that myself, you have to abide by the new code. Otherwise, you know, nothing ever comes into compliance. And that's why I'm sure that the city writes on there that it has to be in code. I mean, it has to comply with the code. And frankly, it's right online. You know, I mean, I'm not a tech whiz at all. But all you have to do is type, you know, side yard setbacks in Rehoboth Beach, and it brings up the code and it tells you all that stuff. So anyway, I don't have any more.
In defense of Mr. Cooper, what I will say is that he does the majority of his work in Lewis. He said he has done some work in Rehoboth, but he is primarily based professionally out of Lewis.
And I have no idea what the Lewis code says.
And it's quite different there.
So I do have some questions.
Okay, Jan.
Sure.
Edie,
Okay.
yeah.
So
Thank you, Jan.
you seem like hardworking and very careful owners, but you're not babes in the woods, as Bill suggested, or as Bill said earlier about zoning. You're both professional contractors. I assume in your businesses as an architect contractor and a landscape designer, you regularly investigate and deal with zoning issues of all kinds, building permits, site surveys, everything that would be involved in projects over and over again for your clients as you bid, construct, and finalize projects. Why didn't you do that for yourselves?
We turned over the permit process to Dana to get the permit. He's licensed to do the construction. He's got a very detailed construction drawing which he submitted to Rehoboth Beach, very carefully detailing exactly where this patio sits in the rear garden. So he's got the drawing, he's got our permission to go ahead and try and get it. He's very diligent. He goes, he submits all the information, and after 2 months, he gets the signed permit to do the construction. Both of us have this big question, why did they give it to us if it's in non-compliance? So it's all very well to say it's Dana's fault, but Dana did everything right. He went there with the drawing and with everything else that he needed to do to get the permit. He paid for it and so on and so forth. So I don't see how it is. Dana actually also mentioned to me, because he does subsequently when we told him we were having a bit of a problem, that, and this is perhaps irrelevant, in Lewis, that there are no setbacks for patios on grade. They're not treated as structures, they patios on grade. And that's what ours is. It's not above grade, it's quiet, it's in the ground. So when he gets a permit to do construction, he's assumed that Mr. Janus or whoever looked at this said, it's cool, it's gone, you're good to go. So that's what we did.
But the onus is always on the contractor and the owner. I mean, in the end, the buck stops here with you two. You're the owners, you are the people who said, this is our project. And as I established, I believe earlier with my earlier questions of the building inspector, something that's submitted to the city as this is what we'd like to do, it isn't necessarily the building inspector's it isn't his responsibility to let you know every little piece about it, because people change what they think they want to do. They say, this is what we think we want to do, and it's the final inspection and the site survey that tells you what's been done. And the licensed contractors have an onus to look at the code. As Jan said, it's public knowledge. It's on the web. Anybody can look at it anytime, including owners, including contractors, and contractors would be more likely to look at it, as you know from your professional experience over and over again in Maryland.
Can I just say one thing?
Of course, you can say whatever.
Which is that looking up the codes online is not necessarily a straightforward procedure for everyone, and that in our experience as contractors, we do rely quite heavily in Montgomery County on our conversations with the permitting department to help guide the design. We will take an initial design and they'll say, well, this is not going to work because this is, not meeting the setbacks, and we go back to the drawing board. So I think perhaps we made a naive assumption that should this design Howard had made not meet with compliance with Rehoboth, that Rehoboth would just tell Dana Cooper, who would then tell us, no, it's not going to work. Figure out a different design. And so, of course, when that didn't happen and he received the permit, we just thought that it was a fine design for the garden.
So essentially, you left all of the details of your project to Mr. Cooper, it seems. Is that correct?
I think that's fair to say. We don't live here, and we were going through our own issues at home, and we trusted him implicitly.
Well,
Did he not bother to tell you that there could be zoning issues and you might want to investigate them together, or?
no, he did
No,
not.
he did not.
Moving to a slightly different point, it's great that you have such support from your current neighbors. I read all of us, I read all the letters. But did you know that any variance granted goes with the property forever? It goes with the property forever, no matter who tears down what, who builds what, it's with the property. It has nothing to do with the current neighbors, the current owners, or how they feel, or what their lots contain. So when we're looking at a variance, we're making a choice for the city forever. And for example, you mentioned in your neighbor's garage was not it was, you said grandfathered. There's actually no such exact thing that exists. And Jan mentioned something about this a few moments ago. The purpose of a non-conforming designation is not perpetuity. It's not grandfathering, as you might think, that, oh, it's set forever. It's just a service to the owners to get them over the hump until the property evolves over time and with maybe new projects, and it will then fully meet city code. So as changes are made on a property, anything that's non-conforming is corrected. And so over time, properties move into compliance with the code as it exists at the time projects are created. So did you know that?
No.
No.
But does that mean that, for instance, our neighbors would eventually have to remove their garage?
Or
apartment?
something.
If
I
they,
see.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, if they want to do a certain amount of work. I mean, we've turned down recently, I mean, if you have a non-conforming property and you want to either tear it down or you want to do a massive remodeling, and I think Mac could give us the exact, but there is, then you must meet code.
As it exists at the
As
time
it
you're
exists
asking for the
today,
project.
Right,
today.
right.
Not 30 years ago or 40, 50 years ago when your house was built.
I didn't know if you knew those things. That's why I was asking you those
No,
two
I appreciate that,
questions.
yeah.
Those two questions. Those are all my questions at this time.
Mark, you have any questions?
The Exhibit B, first of all, and I don't mean this at all sarcastically, I just need to know, do you believe that Mr. Cooper can read and write? And I don't mean it sarcastically, because he did not sign this, he put X's.
Jay.
That is his, I believe that's his
that
signature.
his signature? Well, it's just
I'm taking that
X's.
as his signature.
And I'm thinking that perhaps he wasn't able to read what he signed, which simply says that he agrees, I'll read it, lot coverage per compliance and survey, all should be built showing lot coverage, distance of structures of property lines and tree placement. So he signed, if that's his signature, that he knows what the setbacks are and he's going to follow them. And perhaps he didn't realize what he was signing. I'm just throwing that idea out there. One other question I have is, the valuation was $13,065. Is that what your total cost was?
Yes.
Okay, great. That's the only questions I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I have some questions. Is Mr. Cooper willing to correct this for you?
You mean rebuild the patio somewhere else?
You asked him.
No, because we just won't do it.
Cannot afford to do it.
Yeah, it's it's a tricky little garden, and we wanted to create something that was really at grade and accessible to everyone, and we just can't reproduce it in another part of the small garden.
You cannot move it close. I mean, I'm not here to design it for you. Certainly, I'm not qualified, but you cannot, to become compliant, moved, not a square, some other design that would fit within the rectangle, the setbacks.
Because of the position of the rear of the house, it would be quite difficult to reproduce the size that the patio is within that setback. And the patio would then be really squished up against the house. And, we have a little path at the back of the house to an outdoor shower. And I just don't think we could, reproduce that size and be in compliance with the setback.
Okay, thank you. And again, just to clarify, this is a full-time rental. It's not your home, right? I mean, it's owned by you, but.
Yes, it's a rental property.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just so you understand from a hardship perspective, the financial or whatever, you cannot create your own hardship. Oh, I did this, therefore I have a hardship. We just can't, allow that. So
I see.
From a financial.
So from a hardship perspective, can you just explain an example?
You cannot do something, a construction or a structure, and again, this patio is a structure in Rehoboth Code, that then says, okay, my exceptional practical difficulty is it's too expensive to move this. So the homeowner created a problem and then says, it's a exceptional practical difficulty. I cannot afford you know, to correct it, to bring it into compliance. You're just not allowed to do that.
I see.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
It would be impossible to correct it because of all the reasons we've told you. It's in that position. But if we had to comply with the 15-foot, it would no longer be realistic. It just couldn't be done. So, and then we put it there for other reasons, which we mentioned, which was the holly tree and the oak tree, to make sure that we didn't damage those trees. So they're very important to us, and I know to Rehoboth. But I guess my question is, this is, after all, it's a patio on grade. It's not affecting any of our rear neighbors in any way, shape, or form. And it's, I just can't imagine why, even though we understand that it's non-compliant and that it would be a forever thing, which you explained to us very well. So what? What would be bad about that? You know, if someone demolished our house one day, which no doubt they will, it's a little cottage, and if it was ever sold, then, you know, they would demolish that patio. It would just be gone because these enormous houses are being built in Rehoboth. Excuse me. So,
You know, we do not know that. Again, we are here to protect the land, right? So it is, in our definition of code, it is a structure.
yeah,
To our code, it is a building almost, even though, yes, it's at grade, you cannot see it, but legally it is a structure. It covers the ground. We have, you know, our codes for, you know, natural area, and you're all compliant in that. But it is similar to a building, you know. To give you some examples, if you have this patio and it's close to the rear fence, it could be an impact to your neighbor behind you. Yes, I understand, as Jan was saying, there's all these old structures around Rehoboth, but if you put this patio in the back and you rent it, and whatever is going on, it may be a disturbance. So it doesn't meet one of the quick check factors where it would impact, say, the neighbor to your rear. You know, that's kind of some of the examples of, you know, impact that we have to go through these 4 quick check factors to grant a variance.
yeah. But renters could make a noise without the patio being there, and they'd
Understood.
be
Understood.
nuisance. But yeah, no, we get it.
Yeah. Okay. And there is anyone from the public wish to speak? Okay. I think at the board, let me first ask you, are we all done with our questions?
Well,
On this case.
I might have a question.
Before you speak, sir?
You can go.
Oh, you want, okay. All right. Your name?
Edward Alexander. I'm a full-time resident at 65 Park Avenue, and I would just like to stand up and speak in favor of this variance. And I'm somewhat aghast that the city
Before you,
Yep, I'm sorry. Sir, your name again?
Edward Alexander.
Alexander.
I'm a full-time resident of 65 Park.
Thank you.
And I do pay my taxes.
Thank you. And do you solemnly swear or affirm, sir, that the testimony you give in this proceeding be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the
Yes,
truth?
I do. I would like to support their request for a variance, and I'm somewhat appalled that the city would issue a building permit known to be non-compliant. Thank you.
thank you.
Anyone else?
Appreciate that.
Just quickly, you've seen this sketch?
We have now.
You have now. You had
Yeah.
not seen it before.
No,
You-
not
you had-
until Mr. Janis sent it to us.
Okay, and this is the Mann Associates depiction of the
Yes.
property.
Yeah.
So did you see this in any form before? Before the red entries were made?
Of course, because
So is this your depiction here?
no. So we sent, obviously, Rehoboth told Dana what he needed.
Well,
And so we sent him, yeah, that's a,
We
the
think that he
original-
drew that in.
It's original plat.
Okay, so, all right, that's what I want to get at. Who made this, who made the drawing of the
Dana.
pad?
Mr. Cooper.
Mr. Cooper.
Mr. Cooper,
Yes.
and did Mr. Cooper represent the proximity of that patio to any of the boundary lines, to your knowledge?
It's, I mean, in terms of where he's put it, it's relatively accurate. It's a little bit too close to the western boundary.
Yeah,
but-
but he did not depict the distances to the boundary lines in his submission, or did he?
No, he did not.
No.
I mean,
But-
and
but
he's
he
not
just-
saying, he's not saying when he submitted this that it was to scale.
Well, I think not, because he submitted this.
Okay, so
Yeah.
do you know, how is it that you know that that drawing was in fact submitted to the city? What information do you have that,
You asked Mr. Cooper, and he said he submitted the drawing.
so you gave it to Mr. Cooper?
Oh, we gave him
And
multiple
Mr. Cooper
copies.
says he gave it to the city?
Yes.
But you really don't know, you can't say for certain that that actually happened. Is that right? I mean, we tend to trust what we're being told.
I'm just saying that Mr. Cooper
But you-
said,
But you don't actually know whether that drawing ever made its way to the city. You don't?
You know, it's a bit of an existential question. He was absolutely clear that he gave Howard's drawing into the permitting department. And I think he felt very secure and very confident in the fact that he had done that, because that is the definitive design.
And does that drawing indicate where the patio is in relation to the rear?
yes.
And
Yes.
does it indicate what the distance is?
Yes.
Can you,
Yes.
can you just tell me what that is
So on the drawing,
on the drawing?
it's 3 foot, I believe. 3 foot.
It's 3 foot from the rear?
But that's on the drawing. We know that it encroaches a little bit in reality from simpler survey.
Just for the record,
For the
the patio was depicted to be 3 feet from the rear yard.
Yes.
And
Right.
how close to the side yard?
So you would have to do math, but it's clearly.
So it doesn't say then?
It's, well, we know that this is 50 foot and
It is a scale drawing.
it's a scale drawing, and I've got the
Quarter
dimension
scale.
right here to that point, so you can figure out exactly what it is. It doesn't actually show the 6 foot in that, but it's pretty close. I mean, we're 3.5 inches out, but essentially, the 3 foot absolutely locates this rear patio in its current position.
Okay.
Okay?
And then, again, for the record, to your knowledge, that drawing was not submitted, is that
Mr.
correct?
Townsend, the building licensing department has not received that large drawing even to date.
Right. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this? Okay, so at this point, we're going to close down the public participation, and the board will discuss this amongst ourselves in front of you, and hopefully come up with a motion. I'll open it up to the board.
Listen, I feel for Mr. and Mrs. Katz, I really do. I think that you went into this with the best intentions, but I believe Mr. Cooper dropped the ball, and because of that, we're in the situation that we're in. I'm sorry that Mr. Cooper's not here to testify, since everything is about him, and it seems to be an awful lot of hearsay. I do believe, Matt, that he said that he's never seen this development, and I honestly believe that this Exhibit C was probably given to somebody at some point. It just wasn't conveyed to the Katzes.
Thank
What I
you.
think.
I'm following along with Mark as I think of the quick check factors. Nature of the zone, yes, the nature of the zone would support a patio. The character and use of the immediate vicinity would support the patio, as it's been, as we've talked about it. Not necessarily its place, but the fact that it would exist on the lot at some point. But granting, whether, the number 3, whether granting the variance would seriously affect the neighbor's properties, the neighboring properties. We see from the lovely letters and testimony from their neighbors that it's not at present. It's not an issue at present, but a less than 2-foot setback. I mean, we're talking small, could be a real issue in the future as the properties change, owners change, and uses of the land changes. But number 4, the exceptional practical difficulty, I have a real problem with. The financial and time hardship that's mentioned by the owner has really been self-created by the owner, contractor, or that combination of situations. As they stated by the applicant in one of their, on page 18 of what we got, they had the rear garden was a total blank, or a blank slate as they began. That's an exact quote from their information that they provided. They had total leeway as to its size, shape, and placement before it was ever begun to be sure it would meet code. It seems that a bit more due diligence on the applicant's part, again, professional people who deal with zoning. I don't see how, it seems some due diligence on the applicant's part and oversight of their contractor. Who knows into which chasm this falls, but it's an unfortunate thing, as Mark stated, that they've got a tough situation. A construction that didn't even leave 2 feet of 15 feet required rear yard setback. This isn't a mistake. It's a disregard of code, and I can't support it.
Thank you, Edie. Jan, thoughts?
I think I've been pretty clear about how I feel. I can't support this either. You know, if maybe if Mr. Cooper had been here, but you know, he's not. And I think it sounds to me from everything you've told us and what building and licensing has told us that your problem really isn't with the city, it's with Mr. Cooper. And maybe you ought to look for remediation there.
Bill, thanks, Jan.
I agree with what all the other members said. You know, just to say to the Katz's, we don't set the zoning rules. The city does. And then our job is to decide whether there are exceptions to it, which are, as Edie and Mark said, are exceptional practical difficulty. That difficulty, as Barry said, can't be created by the homeowner. It's got to be that it's pre-existing. And I have to tell you that this is not the first time. Frankly, it's the second time this fall that we've had situations with builders with permits, with building licenses in this city have gone ahead and put their homeowner in just the same situation you're in, which is you know, just a disregard of the code. So part of what our job is, frankly, is to not encourage that, to make it clear to the builders who have licenses here that this board is not going to just go and accept the fact they put their homeowners in a very difficult situations. And it is the second one in 2 hearings, actually, that we've faced this. So we do feel for you, but you know, that's a situation that we're in.
Thank you, Bill. And Delaware law, not Rehoboth law, but Delaware law says when we grant a variance, it should be minimal. And we've been here, we've heard cases before where it was like an inch into the side setback, something like that on the side, you know, 3 inches. Probably the board would have said, you know, that's very minimal. But we're talking, you know, you're only a couple feet, 2 feet off the rear property, and we have a 15-foot setback. I'm having a hard time seeing, you know, the hardship here. Again, you know, I look at this plan, I see a very large patio, 16 by 17 feet. I do think Mr. Cooper should help you. He made the mistake. He signed for it. It was his responsibility, but that's between you and Mr. Cooper. I would have a hard time supporting a motion to approve the variance. So at that, we need a motion, and then we will vote on it.
Make a motion to deny the variance?
Second.
And your reasons? Mark?
Since as were just stated, that number 4 of the quick check does not seem to be met.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And a second?
I'll
Edie
second.
seconded.
Okay.
For the quick check reasons I gave in my summary, there's no exceptional practical difficulty that I can find.
Thank you. Mark, so let's ask you to vote on your motion.
Yea to deny it.
Okay.
Yes to deny it.
Yes to deny. I don't see an exceptional practical difficulty.
Deny, no exceptional practical difficulty.
And I also vote yes to deny, and I do not think quick check factors 3 or 4 were met. I do think there is a potential impact to the neighbor to the rear, as well as it's a self-induced hardship. So I am so sorry. I wish you would contact Mr. Cooper and help get this remediated. Thank you.
Harry, do we take 5?
5, okay.
Say no, when somebody asks.
Yeah, go.
You have no choice.
Sorry,
When
yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
asks,
I
you
don't
have
think
to
there's a
do it.
motion, so yeah, 5-minute recess.
Well, I may as well take it.
Moving on to our third case for 69 Park Avenue. Matt, I'm going to turn it over to you for the building inspector's report.
Certainly. Thank
If
you.
you're if you're ready.
I am. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. And it's still Monday, believe it or not. And it's still happy to be here. That's right. I'm sure Vince is too, right?
Thrilled. That's what I said earlier. I feel like I'm in between some people and the start of their Thanksgiving week. So, I don't know. So.
All right. Before you now is application number 0924-10. The location for this one is 69 Park Avenue. The applicant is Andrew and Patricia Vella of 18 Vining Lane, Wilmington, Delaware 19807. The owners are the same, and they are seeking variances to section 27021 natural area, floor area ratio, and lot coverage, and 27026 side yards. Nature of the request is as follows. The applicants Andrew and Patricia Vella are seeking variances to 27021 natural area, floor area ratio, and lot coverage, and 27026 side yards to allow an expansion of the existing 1.5-story single-family dwelling on SFD moving forward to construct an ADA-compliant bathroom with an addition to the existing screen porch. The application shows that the proposed addition would encroach side setback requirements. The property is located at 69 Park Avenue, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 19971, and is situated in the R1 residential district. The property is listed in Sussex County Records as tax map number 334-14.13-148.00. The parcel is a 50 by 83.05 parcel and is an irregular shaped lot containing 4,132 square feet. Background information is as follows. The applicant desires to construct an addition to an existing SFD. The intent is to build an ADA-compliant bathroom by adding onto the existing screen porch and adding onto the existing screen porch. The proposed ADA-compliant bathroom is 195 square feet. The existing screen porch is shown to be constructed as part of the original house built under valid permitting approved in January of 1964. The screen porch is currently set back 6 feet from the property line. The structure was constructed when side setback requirements differed from the current code. The permit issued in 1964 shows that the requirements were 6 foot on each side at that time, and you can see that with Building Inspector Exhibit A. The maximum allowable gross lot area coverage per 27021A1 of 50%, which is 4,132 square foot of parcel, is 2,066. The submitted survey shows the existing lot coverage to be 1,950 square feet, as shown in Building Inspector Exhibit B. The maximum allowable lot coverage per 27021C1 of 40% of 4,132 square feet is 2,479 square feet. The survey submitted shows the existing lot coverage to be, again, 1,950 square feet in Building Inspector Exhibit B. Variance requests are as follows. 27021 natural area ratio, and lot coverage. A, natural area. In R1S, R1, and R2 districts, a minimum of 50% of the gross lot area and 50% of front yard setback area of every building lot shall remain as natural area as defined in 274. C, lot coverage. 1, in all residential districts, the maximum lot coverage shall not exceed that given in the following table. And again, only that applies to us, which is R1. We have 40% of maximum lot coverage and a 10% of maximum area of accessory structures. The maximum allowable of gross lot area coverage of 50% is 2,066. The maximum lot coverage, 40% of 4,132 square feet, plus 10% of 4,132 square feet is 2,066. The survey submitted shows the existing lot coverage to be 1,994 square feet. The proposed addition of conditioned space and adding on to the existing screen porch would exceed the allowable lot coverage by 120 square feet, as shown in Building Inspector Exhibit B. 27025 side yards. 2 side yards shall be provided on every lot as prescribed in the following table. Again, only that which is relative to us, which is the R1 district. It has a minimum of 6 feet and a total of 16 feet required in aggregate. The proposed construction of an ADA compliant bathroom would continue an existing side setback encroachment on the right side of the property. Though the structure was constructed when side setback requirements differed and was allowed at the time, the addition would encroach on the current code provisions, and it is not allowed. The addition is shown to continue in line with the existing porch, currently encroaching by 0.15 feet and continuing to the rear of the property to create an encroachment of 6.04 feet, as shown in Building Inspector Exhibit B. A side setback of 10 feet would be required, so a variance of 9.96 feet is required. And I believe that Vince and I had touched base on this exact side setback requirement, in that they don't need a 9.96 feet setback. It's more the difference of the area that they're creating. And I don't have that calculation on hand, but I can certainly provide that, and I believe the applicant actually is prepared to speak to it. So it's the way that we were looking at it in the building licensing department was that the 10 foot from the property line. If we expand the structure to the side, you're not quite at that 10 feet. Again, yeah, you're looking at me with confusion, but we'll let the applicant speak. And then the conclusion for this is the proposed construction of an addition to an existing single-family dwelling to include a new ADA-compliant bathroom by adding onto the existing screen porch would extend an existing side setback encroachment by 9.96 feet. The proposal would also cause the existing gross lot area coverage to be increased to a total of 2,139 square feet, an overage of 120 square feet of the allowable 2,066 square feet. For the addition to be permitted, the construction requires a side setback and gross lot area coverage and maximum lot coverage variance as indicated. Any questions?
I have some, but
Go ahead, please.
Okay.
Edie?
I have a small typo suggestion first, and that's on your page 2. I think you meant 270.26 for side yards there at the bottom instead of 25.
Indeed.
That's just a correction for the record, right, on page 2. That's a small thing. But then I need your help, Matt.
Certainly.
To review the calculations. I couldn't get everything to add up the way I was hoping it would. So if we can start on your report on page 1, you say that it's 50 by 8305, but I notice one side of it is 82.25, I think. But you're saying if I multiply 50 by 83.05, I get 4,152 square feet. And we have 4152, and you have 4132.
Correct.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm trying to understand.
Right, so it's an imperfect rectangle, so we
That's
don't
what I
have
was-
90-degree angles. We have a bit of a skew going on.
Right.
So I went by the official stamped, signed, and sealed
Okay.
engineered document that gives me the square footage of the property.
Okay.
Which is the 4,132 square
32.
feet.
Okay, so that's what we're going to go with.
Yes, ma'am.
Then the proposed bathroom would be 195 square feet. I didn't see its measurements on the Building Inspector's Exhibit B. Again, just trying to clarify here. It's in blue, and I really appreciate your blues and reds. It helps us
Yes.
read these things very, very easily.
So it's shown there in a rectangular type form
Yes.
where they indicate proposed first floor area plan as an extension. I haven't actually included both the bathroom and the extension of the
porch.
screen porch as a totality of
Okay.
195 square feet.
So when you say on page 1, the proposed ADA compliant bathroom is 195 square feet, you're saying the bathroom and the porch together?
Correct.
Okay. Just making a note here. And do you have the dimensions of how that was computed?
I don't have specific drawings indicating indicating that size that I presented for this report. I understand that the applicant does have some drawings that are ready for construction, I believe, so I
okay.
would defer to the applicant on that.
All right. Now, if we go to page 2, on the second bullet at the top, the maximum allowable gross lot average or area coverage of 50%, 4132, is 2,066, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So but I had that marked because in case the first calculation was incorrect, I felt we should go and review and maybe make adjustments to all. I'm not.
Right.
Okay, so that's all right. Now, the submitted survey shows the existing lot coverage to be 1950, but when I look at your building Exhibit B, it says existing coverage in blue at the top, 1994, and I couldn't get that to match 1950. I wasn't sure which was right, or if we had a disconnect somehow, or.
Yeah, they are obviously two different numbers, aren't
Yeah,
they?
I noticed that right away.
Yeah, so my red, it shows me what I've calculated per the document submitted. So I have a lovely program called the Bluebeam that I put this into. I put everything to scale, all the documents, I measure everything, and these were the numbers that I came up with. So in my opinion, it's more important for me to go with the totality and the more maximum number than it is to what the applicant would report by. So in this case, our numbers are a little bit more calculated than what they have provided. But I go by the document that was created with the stamp on it that somebody attests to. And it is not uncommon, scaling differences, et cetera, when you start to manipulate these documents to be a little off here and there with the square footages.
Can I just ask a follow-up to that?
Of course.
Does that
Please go
include
ahead.
the shed and the shower? Is that why?
So everything that is shown in red is shown as.
No, I'm looking at it in black and white.
Oh, yes, yes, it does include the patio and the shower and the shed.
And the sidewalk. Okay, got it.
But,
He's got the.
which number are we
I don't
using,
have a
Matt?
color
Are we
printer.
using the 1950 that's on page 2 in your text, or are we using the 1994 on the Exhibit B? Which do you want to? I mean, which is the most comfortable to really look at this project? I didn't know where the 1950 came, because you say the survey submitted shows to be 1950 in your text, but then
So,
I didn't see 1950.
I would offer that if the board was inclined to grant a variance, that we should use the number that would capture the maximum needed in order to legalize or permit the improvements. And we'll give the applicant an opportunity to tell us if they think they need less than what Matt has calculated.
But one of
So
the.
1994, as the existing coverage, would be a higher number than what we might otherwise come up with, so we should operate maybe from the higher number.
I would agree with that. Yes, sir.
But will that make a difference in the end if any of these other calculations are slightly off in terms of lot coverage?
I believe, and the applicant can speak to this,
Sure,
but in the
sure.
process of all of the determination of building permit, I believe the applicant has stated that some manipulation of coverages and spaces could be amenable to them. So I would let them.
Okay.
So in other words, lot coverage might not be an issue when we put this addition in respect to the potential of removing or altering other areas of the existing property.
Okay. Thank you. Continuing then, so now let's go down to natural area. I'm still on page 2. And we didn't calculate there, but it would be 50%, so that would be that 2066 again, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just making sure. And then C, lot coverage would be 40% plus 10%, which of course is 50%. So that's the 2066 again, correct?
Okay, that's right.
Okay. So then I'm down to the paragraph under that, I'm sorry, I'm getting over a little bit of a cold, so if I'm snuffy, I apologize. The maximum allowable of gross lot area coverage is 50%, 2066. We're agreeing on that. The maximum lot coverage is 2066. The survey submitted shows existing lot coverage to be 1994. So there's the 1994 here, where it was 1950 above, you know, that disconnect. But we're agreeing it's 1994. Then the proposed addition of conditioned space would exceed lot coverage by 120 square feet. So we've got, if we go back to your Exhibit B, you've got 2066 to start with, to subtract from. We have 1994 and 195, but when I add those up, I don't get 2139, I get 2189. Don't you?
I do, and I believe the next line shows the 2186. That's a typo as well. I do apologize.
Okay.
But yeah, if you look at the bottom line, then that gives us the 120. So we're at 2196. So if we want to adjust, that would be 130.
Okay, just a minute here. So we are adding 1994 plus 195.
And that gives us 2139.
2189.
Excuse me, 2189, yes.
It's a,
Yep.
yeah. So that gives us 2189, and then we subtract
2066.
2066 from that, right? So I get 123 square feet. Is that what everybody's getting?
Correct.
Okay,
Good catch.
thank you. So the 2186 is wrong also, that's written on there, right? It should be
Should be 2189.
2189, right?
Correct.
So that top area should, the first line still says 2066, the second line still says 1994, the third line still says 195, the fourth line, total coverage, now says 2189. The fifth line begins with 2189, subtracts 2066 with a net of 123 over. Are we all
Correct.
agreeing on
I
that?
think we're in agreement.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure we're all on the same page. Okay, and I told you about the 27026. And then on the third page, Matt, you say a side setback of 10 feet would be required, so a variance of 996, and you say the applicant is going to give us more information about that?
Correct. So if we expand the existing structure into the setback, it's not a totality of a 10-foot setback that they need. And again, I'll defer
Okay.
to the applicant on that, and they can go into more detail. But
Is it your understanding that the applicant will be giving us the running feet? Because we're obviously, if we have granted a variance, they're already non-compliant on the front portion, the existing. But if we grant a variance, we've got more footage going back, so we need the total running feet, I think, on that east side of the house
I think that would be appropriate if you want to solidify that number.
to get that from the applicant.
Certainly, yes.
Okay, I'm just marking that. So again, in the conclusion, the proposal, they're going to tell us about the 9.96, but the sentence beginning, the proposal would also blah, 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 to a total of, it should say 2189, right?
Correct.
We've agreed that. An overage of 123 square feet, to make it read correctly, right? Of the allowable 2066. I'm just trying to make sure that this all reads correctly mathematically
No,
and that we're good.
Yeah, then thank you for that. I don't know what happened
Well,
there.
things happen.
Yeah, I
That's why
appreciate
we're
it.
all, that's why we're all looking at, we have so many eyes on this. Let's see. So, let's see, total running feet. In your opinion, Matt, this is moving off math, I'm finished with the mathematical part. Could a non-ADA bathroom be constructed within code
In reference to,
for what the applicant's asking? I mean, is there a reason is there a difference between a non-ADA and an ADA compliant bathroom that makes a difference in what they're asking, or not? I can ask them what they're asking, but I mean, in terms of what the measurements might be.
so yes, in reference to an ADA compliant facility, spaces would be larger. They
Right,
would,
right.
you would have more access to those different fixtures that aren't required in a standard construction, if you want to call it that.
Okay,
A wider doorway.
You have a wider door, you have a usually either a smaller vanity shorter vanity, if you will.
Yeah.
And also it's open there. Also, grab bars, things like of that nature are spaced out differently. There's more space to access the toilet and access the shower.
Yeah, isn't there like a
Generally
turn,
bigger and
a turn radius for a wheelchair and
Correct.
so forth? Okay.
Yeah, and then usually the floor is flat to the shower, so you can wheel your wheelchair in there.
Have the
Zero.
applicants,
I have a brother-in-law who's handicapped.
have the applicants discussed any Plan B with you of anything other than just what they gave you? They
not to
gave-
my knowledge, no.
Okay,
they have
so
not,
just
no.
what you see is what you get, at least at this point. Are natural area and lot coverage currently exceeded? And by how much? It seemed to me that there might be an exceeding measurement.
What I'm showing is it's 40% of impervious, 47%, excuse me, of impervious area. And that's stated by a signed and sealed survey prepared by Pannoni. They're listing the impervious area on the totality of as 1,944.11 square feet, and that's 47% of the lot area. So that surveyor is attesting that they are about 3% under of their allowable
Yeah.
lot coverage.
Okay, so they still have a little wiggle room.
I believe so.
Those are all of my questions. Thank you, Barry, for the floor.
Matt, looking at the house, do you have any idea what the gross square footage is of the existing house?
I do not. I know that the structure is a 1.5 story, essentially. And so the addition, and I know that Mr. Shingo has been working with this applicant hand in hand. And the only potential for variance that we found collectively was for the lot coverage, possibly if they weren't to manipulate the lot, and then the side setback. So everything comes into compliance with the floor area ratio.
My question was, we're already a large house for the size of the lot. Looking down at the footprint with only less than a 6-foot setback on one side and a 6-foot setback on the other side, seems like the house is sufficiently large.
So it's important to remember that this is a 1.5 story. So what you're looking at isn't
First
stacked
floor.
twice.
Correct, okay,
right?
great. The other question I have is on page 3, and it's just something I don't quite understand.
Sure.
The first paragraph, last line, the addition is shown to continue in line with the existing porch currently encroaching by 0.15. Is that 0.15 the existing porch is encroaching?
Correct. So if you were to draw that imaginary 10-foot setback line, that porch already,
In it?
right.
Okay. That's the only thing, I didn't quite get what that 0.15 was. That's all, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Jan?
I had asked Matt earlier, when I looked at the drawing, there's a rectangular inside the screen porch, and I just confirmed that is not the existing screen porch, that is a new screen porch, and the rectangular is the ADA bathroom. And so how much, I'm not a mathematician. How big is the addition, the current screen porch and the addition to it?
The totality of proposed addition, I measured at 195 square feet.
But that's
That's
including the
inclusive
bathroom.
of both, right?
No, but I just wondered for the porch. What size is the existing porch and how much bigger is
I
it going to be?
don't have that document in front of
Okay,
me to be able
all
to
right.
tell me the exact measurements.
Okay, because it looks like it's more than double the size of the existing porch, just looking at the drawing, if the bathroom wasn't there. And it's much larger if, is that what you're seeing from the drawing?
We don't have a picture, do we, of the,
We don't.
if I can
No,
jump in
I
here.
mean, I know what the
We don't
house
have a
looks
pic-
like.
We
but-
don't have a, I'm sorry, go ahead, you finish.
No.
We don't have a picture of, or a drawing of what the current screen porch looks like.
No.
The house with the current screen porch. We have only the end result, the desired end result, which is the screen porch with its
With the
addition.
yeah.
And I don't know and perhaps again, the applicant will be able to tell us that when we have his presentation, but that would be a question there.
Yeah, and I
But
think-
you don't have that, Matt, right?
I think from simplest form, if you look at the document that I provided, the red is existing, the blue is proposed. I know, Ms. Conacy, I apologize, you're looking
No,
at
I
black
don't
and
have a
white.
color printer like Gary does.
But you haven't, the entire screen porch is red.
So that's the existing screen porch. There is a portion of the screen porch that's existing. They're not building
Right.
all of the screen porch.
So the blue minus the bathroom, so it is essentially, it's a double size, at least a double size of what they already have.
That's what this document shows me, yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
perfect, thank you. That's what I thought, but then I'm not as good with diagrams.
Well, then I'll go back for a minute on this same topic. Matt, then where is the existing screen porch, or what's the line on
So
it?
the existing screen porch is shown in red.
And it's just
So
below.
everything that's in
I know
red
where it
that
is.
I've highlighted is existing on the lot. The blue would be the new addition, the proposed addition.
Okay,
Okay?
but the application says they want to, an expansion, let's see. Construct an ADA compliant bathroom with an addition to the, so the addition is the bathroom.
The
Because
addition
the
would
way-
be,
Because
The
we got
addition
really
is the-
confused about that language.
Yeah. If I could show the presentation, we might be able to get
All right,
through
we'll
this.
come back to that
Yeah,
then, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, excuse
But
me.
let me ask, I want to ask Bill, if you,
Just a minor point, top of page 2, Matt, third bullet, you may have corrected this, the 40% number on the lot coverage. That's actually the 60% number.
say that again to me, sir.
Yeah,
The
Right.
third bullet,
Third bullet.
you said 40% of.
Right.
of-
Should be 60%, yep.
But actually it's 60, but you don't want it to be 60%. I think you wanted 40 to tell us what the 40% coverage, which should be, 1,700 and something.
Yeah, I have, that's a strange sentence that I might not have authored.
Yeah,
I
maximum allowable
apologize.
Lot coverage actually is 40% plus 10%.
Plus 10%, which would be 50% overall.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
sir.
what you got there is, the math is wrong, but I
Right.
think it's not actually what you wanted to tell us anyway.
And I think it's 50% is what we want, so it would go back to the,
2066.
yes, sir.
but that number you want, Bill, is 1652.
Yeah.
Which is be 40% of 4132,
Correct.
which you added to 10% too, so we got the 20, yeah.
And then you got that right. Good correction. Thank you.
Aren't you glad to have all these people? nitpick?
I love it. It's just fantastic. Look forward to these Mondays.
Edie is the best proofreader I've ever met.
She's amazing.
She knows her numbers,
Math
that's for
Monday.
sure.
Math Monday.
Yeah,
We get certificates of attendance from the.
right.
any other questions, Bill?
No.
All right, I have no questions for Matt. Mr. Robertson, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, and hopefully I can answer some of those questions. So, for the record, Vince Robertson with Parkowski, Girk, and Swayze. I'm here on behalf of Andrew and Patricia Vella, who are sitting here in the front row, along with a bunch of their neighbors. I think everybody submitted letters who's here as well. We are here with regard to 69 Park Avenue. I submitted to Ann the PowerPoint before. I will say I've added a slide just so I don't have to toggle back and forth on something. It's to copy the tax map to show the regular size of the property. But as was stated, actually I'm going to jump ahead to it. This lot is a small lot. The lots on this side of Park are already small. You can see the one next to it, which is, let's see, that's 65. So that's the one on the, 60. Yeah, so right, on the west side's 9447, but this property is actually only, according to the tax map, which I realize is a little bit different than the surveys, but it showed it being quite a bit back. And I wanted to show this visually, not so much for the measurement, but you can see this is the lot line here for that property, and it comes in here and goes up here, and then it extends back out when you get to 65 Park on the east. So the lot to the north of the Vellas actually sticks into what would be the back of their lot, as it pertains to every other lot on that street. So, that's a unique circumstance with regard to their property. The home is currently legally non-conforming. It has the existing side porch that encroaches onto the eastern side yard at a distance of 5.85 feet from the front boundary at its closest point. You can see that here, that's this corner. And I'm going to get into some photographs that show what we're talking about a little more, but it's 5.85 off here. The proposed porch in the back corner is 6.04 off that side property line. So this is a photograph, and it's a little blurry just because it got blown up on the screens, but of the house, looking at it, the end of it from the street from Park. My folks have owned it since 2016. We thought the house was built in the 40s or 50s, but as Matt put in his report, there's that building permit that looks like it was built in the 60s, 1964. But it's an older house that's at least, I would say, 60 years old at this point. You can see the existing side porch here on the right or the east side of the property. That's going to stay. This is just a better picture of that side porch. You can see the entry into it, and you know, the eastern side of it. The property line somewhere over here in the vegetation. This just shows the inside of the side porch looking towards the north and the rear of the property. So this porch is going to stay, it'll be updated, but it's going to extend back in the same dimension on the eastern side to the back corner of the existing house. Within that porch, and I'll have plans that show that, is where the bathroom's going to extend out from inside the house slightly, roughly where that Weber grill is. So that's kind of the location of where that will be on the ground. This is the opposite view of the porch. Again, you can see the existing porch where it currently sits, and that porch will come out here to this back corner, again with the bathroom partially inside the existing part of the house and partially extending into that back porch. You can't see the Weber grill, but roughly where this electric meter is right here. The important thing, I want to go back to this, is that from Park Avenue, and some of the neighbors referenced this, you won't be able to tell that there's an expanded encroachment because it's going to be behind the porch that's existed for 60 years. So visually, there's not any impact on the neighborhood or the streetscape at all. And we have the letters from the neighbors, which I'll get to in a moment, including the neighbor to the east that would be, I guess, most impacted by this, who are fully in support of it. This is just the view, kind of looking from the front of the neighbor's property to the east, back at the existing side porch. You can't see it very well. You can see a little bit of the outline of it here, and that would just extend backward or northward along the fence, and the fence kind of gives you an idea where that property line is.
Whose fence is that, by the way?
That's a good question. The owners of 65, yeah, because, is it? Okay. It looks like from the survey, it's right on the property line, so it doesn't show as being really either one of theirs, but there's no intention to do anything with that fence. As we mentioned, there's two variances, and I'll give you a little bit of history about this. The one that we were most focused on was the screen porch and bathroom variance, because that's the one that's most significant. This is an old house, and I'll get to that in a moment, but that they were trying to figure out a way to make it livable for Mr. and Mrs. Villa into the future with the least amount of impact on the property or the neighborhood. And so we were focused on that, and that was the need. We looked to make sure we were good with the FAR setbacks. That was the need for the side yard setback. And talking with Mr. Janis, he brought up the point that there might be lot coverage issues. And I will tell you that when we looked at that, the patio has been there in one form or another since before the Vellas purchased it. It was brick originally, and it was resurfaced with the surface that's there now. So it's our belief, anyway, that that's a legally non-conforming patio. So in conjunction with Mr. Janis, he suggested that we include, and it was noticed this way, the lot coverage variance as well, so that we could keep the patio intact. I will tell you that we want to keep the patio intact, and for the reasons I'll get into, the variance can be justified. But to be truthful and forthcoming on that, that's the least of our concerns. Those patio pavers can come up, because that's less important than this minor bathroom expansion. So that's why we added that variance for the 123 feet of lot coverage. But what they want to do, as I mentioned, and Matt and everybody's talked about, is construct an ADA compliant bathroom. Let me back up. This is the back patio, so that you can see there's a picnic table, there's some seats, and you can see the paver material here. which shows up on the surveys. They wanted to construct an ADA-compliant bathroom within the home with an addition to the existing screen porch. Again, it will not extend any further into the side yard setback than the existing side porch. As I mentioned, it will not be noticeable from Park Avenue or the neighbors. And again, the neighbors fully support the variance, and to my knowledge is not in the opposition to it. One of the things that they've strived to do here, for a variety of reasons, is preserve that existing home. One of the reasons is in Rehoboth, everybody's trying to maintain the existing homes. The other fact of the matter is if, whether it was the Velas or somebody else, if they tore that home down, it's more than likely that to make it livable and usable with parking and everything else that we don't have to deal with because that's non-conforming, that you'd need multiple variances to do that, whether they be setback variances or FAR variances or lot coverage variances or natural area variances. So it makes it really tough, and they don't have any desire to do this, but it would make it really tough, surely more difficult with more variances than what they're asking for this evening. Again, it's just the ADA compliant bathroom within a small expansion to the existing screen porch. And we're calling it an ADA compliant bathroom, that is true, but also part of the story is, and you'll see in the plans in a moment, these old houses just have tiny bathrooms, so they want one that is ADA compliant in the future, but frankly is up to today's standards in terms of just being able to move around in it, with the house being 60 years old. And it was important to them, again, to stay within the line established by the existing side porch so that it did not increase the encroachment any closer than what exists now on that eastern boundary line. So sort of with that general explanation, I want to go through the quick chat features. But before I do that, here's a little bit of a visual on what we're talking about. You can see, and I've drawn in arrows on these plans. The top one is the house, and the arrow shows the new porch. We were saying it's double the size of the existing porch. I think we're all saying the same thing. It's not double the size. At the end result, it'll be twice as big. But pull that up a little. I'm going to try.
But not quite twice as big because the bathroom's going to jut out.
That's true. That's true.
Correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm looking at the diagram.
Yeah. No, that's right. And I'm not sure on this. Yeah.
Pardon?
To blow it up. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't know how.
Yeah, to zoom in. With the system, I'm not sure. But this is just where the arrow is also shows that new porch on the back. So up here's the front porch, and these sort of screen panels right here compromise the new porch. And this is a really good depiction of it. Where this arrow is, you can see the existing front porch, the L-shaped new rear porch that lines up. Now, just so we're clear, that's not a property line. That's just these two images next to each other. It lines up with the front porch at the beginning, or at the front of the house. And then the bathroom is actually partially inside the house and partially outside the house, again, to make it work and have that work with the shower, et cetera. It needs to stick out a little bit into that size, that side yard and into that side porch. This is a little bit different. This is a rendering that we prepared, again, just to show. Here's the existing porch in the front with a door that enters out on the front towards Park Avenue. And what's in red is the entire new rear porch with, and I didn't blow this up, but with the bathroom inside it right there.
Vince, do you have the measurements of that, or will you get to that?
I apologize, I don't, because we have the measurement of the encroachment on the survey, which shows up here, of a 911.5. But I don't have the run from the existing porch to the rear. But I think there's an easy solution to that, which is if you were going to grant the approval of this, the encroachment would be from the northern corner of the existing screen porch to the existing northeast corner of the existing home, because we're not going to run any further than the existing home. And this just shows what that'll look like from the eastern side of the property, although you really won't see it because there's a fence. But again, existing porch, new screen porch with the bathroom inside of it. And this doesn't have anything to do with the variance, but there's a shed roof up top. And you can just see, again, the property looking at it from the rear, and you can tell where that bathroom is, and then the porch that kind of makes the L shape around it, the new porch. So with that in mind, what I'd like to do is go through the quick check factors, if I could. I'm going to go through the side yard setback first aspect of quick check, and then we'll touch on the lot coverage aspect of it. So the first one is the nature of the zone where the property lies, and that's R1 residential. So that's frankly the easiest one to check off, so that one's satisfied. The second item is whether the variance is consistent with the character and uses of the immediate vicinity, the immediate vicinity, to paraphrase that one. And again, the character of the neighborhood is residential with a mixture of newer and older homes. And all of the nearby lots, as I mentioned, on the northern side of Park Avenue are smaller than 5,000 square feet. And many of them have encroachment to one degree or another. You know, if you go, I'm not going to go back to it, but even the house to the rear on Columbia sits way back on the lot and probably encroaches into the rear yard setback, but it's probably been there forever as well. So there's a variety of different encroachments to one degree or another. As I mentioned, the consistency with the character and uses of the immediate vicinity. If the home was torn down, a new one could not be built within the current footprint without a lot of variances. And we touched upon, frankly, the new home, just given the value of the property, would be quite a bit larger, certainly than what's there now, and would likely be less in character with the neighborhood than this minor variance that you wouldn't be able to see from Park Avenue. Again, because it's situated behind that screen porch that exists. And it will have no impact on the neighborhood. And we have 8 letters of support from all the neighboring properties, including the properties most immediately affected by it on the west, east, and to the rear on the north. So they all state that it's in character with their neighborhood and that it wouldn't have any adverse impact upon them. And those are all in the record, including the one that was submitted, I think, this morning to Ann and to Mr. Townsend. So thanks for getting that into the record. And again, they're not neighbors that live far and wide. It's 65 Park, which is next door, 71 Park, which is on the other side to the west, 70 Park, which is across the street, 70 Columbia, which is the one to the rear, 73 Park, 75 Park, 74 Park, and 84 Park. So these are all the immediate neighbors to this property, and they have all signed off on the variance and say that they support it and it won't have any adverse effects. Which leads us into the third quick check item, which is whether there would be any serious effects on the neighboring property. Again, I don't think logically you can say that's the case because it won't be visually apparent to anyone looking at the property from Park Avenue. As I mentioned, the property to the east of 69 Park is owned by Mr. and Mrs. Alexander, who are here this afternoon still. And they have provided a letter that fully supports the variance and that they understand it. As I mentioned, both doctors who own at 70 Columbia have also signed off on it. They're the ones that would see it, and they have no issues with it. Really, it won't impact the status quo among the neighbors and won't have any effect on the neighboring properties of the neighborhood. So that element's satisfied. The fourth one is the exceptional practical difficulty standard. This one, there's several different reasons that support it. The lot is unusually small. Again, it has a depth of only 83 feet, which is itself unusual on this strip of lots that are actually bigger. Even though they're smaller than typical lots, they're bigger than this one. So it's not feasible in this case without more variances to extend the rear of the home, which wouldn't make any sense anyway because you would be creating a new structure where one doesn't physically exist today, whereas here we're extending an encroachment that already exists. So it's the least impactful way to get their bathroom done that they need to get done. Again, it's just a minor expansion in that regard. The other option really, as I mentioned, would be to demolish the 60-year-old home and construct a new one. But again, given the size of the lot and everything we've talked about, that's not really feasible without multiple variances. And I should say, the Vellas, this wasn't something that they came to lightly. They consulted with Douglas & Company, who's their architect and designer, to see what can we do with regard to this existing property that will be the least impactful on the property and require the minimal amount of variances for it. You know, Also knowing that they didn't want to blow up the FAR, to create the need for that by going upwards or outwards out the back. There was a lot of work that was done to accomplish that with Douglas and Company, and this was the result that they landed on that would have the least impact on their neighborhood, require the least variances under the zoning code, but maintain the integrity of the home. So, when you look at this minor variance versus, just frankly blowing the whole thing up, that would be an imbalanced result compared with what we think is a minor variance for the side yard setback. And that leads into the fifth requirement, the minimal variances. Again, not to beat this horse to death, but it is within the side yard established by the existing screen porch. It will not be visible from Park Avenue. And again, these are minor in that regard compared with what could be required. There was a question with regard to the survey and Matt's calculations on the setback. And this is what I asked him about prior to the hearing, because that sentence concerned me that said a side setback of 10.0 would be required, so a variance of 9.96 is required. That would suggest that the structure's 0.04 feet off the property line, which is not the case. It's 6.04 feet off the property line as shown on this survey here. So what we need is a variance of 3.96 feet because, to get to the 10 feet, which would be somewhere in here, which would be legal. So if it's 6.04 feet off the property line and the variance or the setback is 10 feet, then we'd need 3.96 just to make that work. So the last one is the lot coverage. And I agree with the math. I get that confused now. With the math that we just talked about, all the same reasons apply to the lot coverage variance request. I'm not going to go through all those again, but that's largely driven by these pavers in the backyard that were calculated in the square footage numbers that we talked about. And those are the least of our concerns. But again, they're not visible to the folks at Park Avenue on the east or to Columbia Avenue to the north, and certainly not to the west. They're not going to have any impact. You can't see them from Park Avenue. So we would like that variance that was mentioned to allow it to be 123 square feet over. I would say this too. The rear is going to be used the same way given the space that's back there, whether there's pavers or not. I mean, they're going to still have their picnic table and other things that are back there. But because that's existing and because it has little to no impact on the neighborhood, we'd like to keep those pavers just to avoid it becoming a muddy mess back there. That's the reason for that. And it's not something that we're asking to add, and we wouldn't ask to add those today for all the reasons we talked about, but because they're existing and have been existing for decades at this point, that was the basis after talking with Matt to add those into the application. So again, there's no harm to the neighborhood, and it's consistent with the zoning and everything else. So I'm really going to conclude the presentation with that. It's a minimal variance to allow this home to remain. It's a minor expansion to bring it into 21st century with an ADA compliant bathroom. And the record supports it. I think we have folks here today that are going to speak in favor of it as their neighbors. And I'm not aware of any opposition to it where somebody has come out and said that there would be a negative impact on their property or the character of the neighborhood and that sort of thing, or that they just don't want it to happen at all. So we think we have a solid case for the side yard setback variance and also the lot yard or the lot coverage variance. And with that, I'll answer any other questions that you all might have. And well, before I do that, if I could ask Mr. Villa to take a stand there at the microphone. And Mr. Villa, you've heard, well, you have to be sworn in first, so thank you.
Name and address for the
Hi, my name's Andrew Vella. I live at 2400 North Grant Avenue in Wilmington, Delaware, which is different than what's on the application. It has our old address, just so we're clear.
Mr. Vella, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony given in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
So, Mr. Vella, you've heard everything that I've explained to the board this evening. Do you agree with everything that I've explained?
I agree with everything you said.
Okay. Do you have anything you'd like to add or clarify?
No, I do not.
Okay. So with that, that concludes our presentation.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. Bill, any questions?
Yeah, Vince, give me again a summary on the exceptional practical difficulty. And this is asking to, I understand the fact that it's not going to be visible from Park Avenue, which is obviously a plus, but it is a further incursion into the setback. So you know that it means more density in the setback, which the city has decided there should be setbacks. We don't get to decide that. So what is the exceptional practical difficulty that?
So, as I said, there's a couple things. One is that they're faced with a uniquely small lot that they, I was going to say inherited, but they didn't, they bought it. They acquired, you know, which is unique, and sort of uniqueness falls into that exceptional practical difficulty standard. So they're stuck with that, which is materially different from all their other neighbors, which themselves are small. They're also dealing with an existing home that has been there for 60 years. And so, you know, the home itself and looking at it, and Mr. Vella can maybe testify this if he wants to, it was built 60 years ago, but it was a vacation home. You know, it wasn't designed to be something that somebody would live in, you know, and use year-round, or as their families, you know, if not primary residence, not as a rental property, you know, and certainly not one that you would build today in 2024. But with that in mind, they want to renovate it so that their family can use it. And to do that, they need to get beyond the teeny tiny bathrooms that are now there. And so the exceptional practical difficulty really comes down to the balance of what can we do with this home on this small lot versus trying to design a new one that would have everything we need, you know, even to a small degree, and seek a building permit for that. And when they worked with Douglas and Company, they were left with, we would have to tear this down, apply for multiple variances, as I mentioned, for FAR and parking, all the setbacks all over again, probably lot coverage, versus do we just apply for this with this screen porch that extends out from where the screen porch currently is, with this bathroom that sticks out a relatively small amount that has the least impact on the city. Now, you know, I suppose they could have gone the other route and torn it down, but that would have been a hard sell for me or anybody else to try to make to the city. And that's the exceptional practical difficulty, dealing with what they're stuck with on that property.
No, but that assumes that nothing else can be done with the existing structure without having to go into the setback in terms of anything else internally.
That's true.
You have not addressed.
Yeah, no, so, I mean, design-wise, oops, wrong way again. You could, but then you wouldn't have the livable space. You'd have a bathroom, but then you wouldn't have the livable space that you needed the bathroom for. And I'm not describing that very well, but in working with Douglas and Company, that's what they decided, that it would not fit within the existing structure, given the structural components of it, you know, given the need for the additional plumbing, given the need for the size of the bathroom, the rear stairs, and that sort of thing. Just the putting the puzzle pieces together, you couldn't do it. And I don't know, Mr. Vella, if you have anything that you'd like to add to that, because you worked with Douglas and Company to design this. So.
Would be helpful. The way it was designed, the way the house has been designed, is for us to age in place there, and that's the whole thing with the ADA compliant bathroom. And this was the most practical way to be able to fit that in without having to sacrifice living space or make it otherwise unlivable in other areas. You know, this is our house. We love this home. This is the place we plan on retiring to and having our family at. And it has served its purpose very well as a vacation home and a summer home, and it's been great. But we are looking to the future before it's too late to look at the future. So this plan was very deliberate and very thought out. And the only way to do it was to carve out additional space or add to make this livable and usable in a way that we envision ourselves doing so. And we didn't want to have a big impact. And that's why the addition is not, it is small in terms of square footage, but it gets us to the point where we're able to have an ADA compliant bathroom. for the future. So any questions about that?
Can I ask a question? Well, it's a long, I mean, you referred to ADA compliant all the way through here, but you don't need it now. It's for future, in case you need to have it.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's all.
Because asking for it, we want to ask for it now rather than having to ask for it in the future when we actually will need it.
Well, I hope we don't need it.
Right, I hope we don't. I hope we don't, but.
Some of us are way beyond your age,
But better-
and,
but be-
and we're hoping that we don't need it.
Right. Yeah, let's all hope so. Right. Let's all
We're
hope
very
so.
young on our side, right?
I would add too, just a follow-up to that, and not to sort of criticize their existing home, their vacation home, but one of the things that this will do will maintain that existing footprint with a minor bump out, but also improve the overall streetscape of Park Avenue, because right now it's what's that, T111 siding on the sides that's got some funk and rot on it in a couple little places, and it's all gray. There's not a lot of character to it. This will enable them, without materially increasing the footprint of the house, really improve the streetscape on Park Avenue as well. And so the other thing is, if you're going to do that and go to that expense, as kind of saying, I think you get this, now's the time to make that change and ask for those variances, when this massive renovation, well, I don't want to say massive, because again, it's not changing the footprint, but it's a substantial renovation to improve that house, to make it their home. So now's the time to do that, so.
Other questions, Jan or Bill? Okay. I had a question. What's the intended use of the proposed new porch in the back as it goes past the bathroom?
That's an egress point, entrance and egress point from the rear, from the rear yard.
Okay.
And we're putting in electric. There's electric service in the back. Our neighbors across the street have a ramp that they use for a wheelchair. And I know we're kind of focused on the wheelchair thing, but that's been designed at the rear egress point to have electrical service for a perhaps potential future wheelchair lift, because while the ramp serves its purpose in our neighbor's yard, in our neighbor's front door, I don't know that we want that eventually. And this would serve that purpose, to have a ramp put in, but we're having service put on the back, right by the back door, for that purpose, to make it easier in the end. So that the extension of the porch serves as an egress point, or an entrance and egress point in the future, if necessary in the future. But we're gonna have a door. It's gonna be
Well,
entrance
the
and
other thing
egress.
I'd point out is this house is a little bit unusual, is it doesn't have a front door.
Well, I was going to ask that question.
So
Do you
there's
get
not
into the house through the porch?
Yeah,
the
you
screen
get in through
porch?
you get in through the house through the porch. So
Okay,
you
well,
go in that door right there, and and the front door is.
Right, okay, that's what it
inside
looks
there.
like.
Yeah,
from-
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
so.
Okay.
So that's gonna,
Yeah.
be the ingress and egress point to Mr. Villa's point.
And then from the plans, there is a bathroom, and there's a bathroom window that would be right onto the porch there?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, they were all my questions.
It'll be, I'm sure, fogged, so you can't see the bathroom. See where you're going with that.
Edie?
Yeah, sure. Oh, sure. Matt, if I may ask you, is the house currently legal nonconforming because of the reason it's coming to our attention is that the setback, the side yard setback, is because they want to change something?
That's correct.
So if they do nothing, not that I'm suggesting that, I'm just saying, if they do nothing, the legal nonconforming status of that porch, the way it is right now, as a side yard setback, sits until, once again, somebody, as we've talked, that these legal nonconforming are not grandfathered. They're just sitting there. Okay.
That's right, yes.
Okay. So the side porch can stay right now without a variance, the current side porch
Everything that is existing on the lot currently
is legal
is legal
legal
nonconforming.
nonconforming.
And had a building permit issued With respect to the patio, not sure of the patio. I don't have any reference of that in my collection, if you will. So,
Okay. And they don't have a lot coverage issue right now either. Is
not
that correct?
not according to the documents they have submitted.
Okay. So everything arises because they're making a change, and so then the legal nonconform, we look at this. And we don't have a number, but if I'm looking at the drawing here, it looks like the existing screen porch, the pink-red part, the red part, is smaller than the blue part. I know we don't have, I wish we had the numbers, but it looks to me as if we're going from something
Yeah,
to
no, I
at least 40 feet, 40 running feet of a variance. Is that right?
I would agree.
Something in there, because if you consider that side is 83.05, my eye tells me if this is to spec, which it says it is, then we're talking about giving a variance for perpetuity of 40 running feet along that side, and plus or minus. I think it's plus. It's probably 42 to 45, I'm guessing.
Looking at the plan, it looks like it's I don't want to state this because it's hard to see on this, but it's 40 feet, 39, 11 and a half. But
Of what?
that's
What, please,
from
Vince?
the point of the corner of the existing porch
Mm-hmm.
to the back corner, the northeast corner of the new porch.
Okay, so 40 feet is about right. So we'd be creating a variance of 40 running feet-ish.
I guess, and I beat that a little bit to death too, and I know you all understand this, but it would be one thing if we were coming in here and asking for that where a structure didn't exist. In this case, it's tying into something that already
Right.
encroaches.
I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know you do.
You're extending a nonconformity.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, but
basically
you're
what it is.
extending the
Right.
non-conforming in perpetuity.
Yeah.
That's something to consider.
That's why they need the
Right,
variance.
exactly.
Well, and I would, if it makes you all feel any better, it is in perpetuity because it runs with the land.
Right.
But I don't think I have any issues with if you state that it runs with the house, that it's a variance for this house, because I don't think there's any issue.
Sure, Matt, is that the only non-conforming currently on the lot, or are there a number of little things that we didn't need to bring up because we are focusing on this particular addition?
I would say that the shed is not conforming
Right.
according to our 4 feet.
That's what I would
and
guess.
if
I
I
would
don't
guess
have
that
any,
too.
and I was going to ask the applicant if they have any recordation of, or any records existing of the patio and its legal existence. However, the applicant, again, I go back to the statement of that they're willing to modify this patio to meet, if you will, at least lot coverage. And in cases like these where we find these, we typically work with the applicant to see if we can allow that patio to continue, but bring it into compliance a little bit better. Again, that's under the assumption that we don't have a valid building permit, that we usually typically go that route,
Okay,
if that makes sense.
yes, it
On
does.
the patio, when they purchased the home, there was a brick patio that was there, and it was actually sort of half covered in dirt and detritus and stuff. But so the patio has been there, and it looked like it had been there for a long time, from what they say. They just, as I said, just renovated it, so it was not so grimy.
Also, as,
I will say, we're not aware of a building permit for that
Okay.
either. It's been there as long as anybody knows.
and also I wanted to make sure that you knew it's something I stated a little earlier in a previous case, that the legal nonconforming is not meant to be in perpetuity, and that it's great to have such wonderful neighbors who support you, but our decision can't be based on the current neighbors and their situation. We're happy to hear what they have to say, and it's wonderful that they all feel that way. Another question I had, I noticed, and maybe you have this as part of your plan, I'm talking to the Vellas now, I noticed a lot of paint peeling on the front of your lovely home.
That is recently, that is recent in terms of, it's probably in the last 6.
I don't know if you can be heard.
I'm sorry.
Start over so Ann can get it on a recording, please,
Sure,
sir.
sure. The paint peeling on the house is fairly recent. We had the house painted when we purchased it. So we moved in January 2016 and probably had it painted that spring. So that's due for, it was due for paint, but part of this renovation is to reclad the house in
I was
artiwood.
wondering if perhaps you had held work like that for a
Waited
completion of a project.
renovate, yes.
If it's approved.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't judge them based on the way.
No,
they-
I don't
no,
judge.
we
I
take-
know,
we
it's
take
a
care of it. No,
question.
we
That's
take
why-
care of the house.
That's why we have questions.
Yeah, no, it's a fair question.
And did you look at any other alternatives when you were looking at this project? Because you only want an ADA bathroom, and you've explained why. But did you look at any other options for adding the space that you're hoping to receive?
We worked there were a lot of iterations of this plan that we did with Douglas and my brother, who's an architect. And we tried to sort out the space as best we could. And the only way to kind of get this in and was to have this bump out, which is a minimal bump out, but it's the only thing that would work. And when I tell you there were several iterations of this plan, there were a lot of iterations of this plan that did not work. So this is the one that worked.
I understand. So, but your iterations were some that you and your wife or your family looked at, but you only shared this one plan with the building inspector, correct? The one that you felt was the best. You didn't go through iterations with him about what kinds
No,
of.
no, because this is the one that we determined was
The
going
best.
to work for us.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That ends my questions.
I would just add, though, the best, but also the least intrusive.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it wasn't a matter of, like I said, this was a very deliberative and thoughtful process of how
I'm
to
sure.
least impact our use of the house and how it would also not have an impact on anything else, our neighbors or anything otherwise.
Mr. Villa, may I ask you, how many bathrooms do you have presently? And is it one on the first floor?
We currently have 2 bathrooms.
Both on the first
No,
floor?
one's on the first
One
floor,
up and
one
one
is
down.
upstairs.
And will you eliminate one of those, or will you have 2 bathrooms on the first floor?
We'll have 2 bathrooms on the first floor.
And would that bathroom bump out work without the porch extension?
Yes. Yes, it would. It could work without it.
We'd need a smaller variance then.
And I don't even know that, well, we might or might not need a variance. I don't know what the square footage is. It's
Well,
within
you
the,
would because it's out- it
it's
would be-
within the setback.
Oh, is it within the setback?
It's within the setback.
all right.
So
You could do the bathroom without a variance at all?
we could possibly do the bathroom without a variance at all. I think that's a better
your
question.
understanding?
I would say that
Matt, but-
that's hypothetical. The other thing is, keep in mind that the porch is for ingress and egress. And so if you would end up with steps that would come right out into that bathroom wall, that's not the most optimal way for people and things and beach stuff and wheelchairs and everything else. If you had to go right down the steps from the existing porch into the bathroom wall and then work your way around it to try to get to the back of the house. This was again, based on the design, the one that was functionally the best, and also just from, a use and traffic flow, the way that made the most sense.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, if they did a smaller footprint bathroom, it still is making a change to the house, right, for a building permit, so that brings up the legal nonconforming of the existing porch, right? Does that do that?
Well, we have a structure that's existing non-conforming, and as long as they add in a conforming way,
Okay.
they wouldn't need a variance. But I think from what the applicant has stated, even if they were to detract the want to expand the screen porch, they would still have some type of side setback variance needed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And it just chops up the house and the porch.
I was going to just say, and I suppose the cosmetics of it, which we consider also would be odd, to say the least.
Well, and you can see, like, when you look at the side, everything flows. There's that new dormer that drops, right over to the edge of the house, which has the porch that runs the whole length of it, where it would be really chopped up. You'd have this dormer, the porch would stop here. There'd be a bump out here. Somewhere in there would be the electric meter. You'd have steps that come here, looking right into the rear part of the bathroom. That's just a really clunky, not very functional design.
We always try to distinguish between a want and a need, and that's
Yeah.
my questions.
This one, I think, really gets into not the want side, the need side, you know, for the whole thing.
And
I have no other questions.
No, all right, Jan, you had another question?
If you remove the shed, how much square footage does that give you? And then I had another comment, if the, you know, now you get, I know, Matt, you can 250 square feet kind of free for a porch. And so that would be their front porch, right?
Only for a front porch.
Only for
in
a
the
front
front
porch.
setback.
Yes, yeah. Okay, well, I mean, it's a little late for a front setback on this house. Okay, I mean, we all live with these rules in Rehoboth, and sometimes it doesn't work well.
Yeah, and like we said, the option would be, if we have to, and we hope we don't, but would be to pull the pavers up, or a portion of them, not the shed. Because the other thing is, with this small lot and the small house, the shed, well, we all know, we have properties at the beach that's functional for your beach chairs and your lawn stuff. and everything
Ours are
else.
in the house,
Yeah.
Vince. Ours are in the house, in a closet, hanging on the back of a closet door. We do not have a shed. We would love a shed, so.
All right, hang on. Okay, any other questions? Oh, did you have a question, Fred?
I just want to make sure that we know what, you know, if we're inclined to grant the overage on the coverage, that we know what the figure is.
I think that's 123 square feet.
120, okay, we're all good with that?
Yeah, I was going to ask that final question.
Yeah.
You're in it, Vince, you are in agreement with the corrections?
Yeah.
Oh, in the application, okay. Okay, at this time, we have no other questions. We're going to turn to the public for, we're losing some of the public, I see. And you were already sworn in.
Sworn in, Edward Alexander. We're the neighbors to the east, and they are wonderful neighbors, and we really don't want them to move. And this would make it so they could live old, get old next to us. So we'd appreciate your consideration.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a question? If
Oh,
you go
yeah.
back up there, so you're the neighbors on which side?
East.
East. So you're the ones that are most impacted by
Right,
this.
they're right next to us.
And
Go
you've
back.
seen the plans that they want to do?
Yes, I've seen the
Okay.
plans. We've talked to them for about a
Okay.
year about this.
And so you don't have any objections to
No,
those
we
plans?
look forward to it.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for
Hey,
that.
thank you, no problem. Anyone else?
My name is Kathy Newberg. I'm at 70 Park Avenue, directly across the street. My husband and I are.
Ms. Newberg, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony given in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. So we are in the process of transitioning down here. I've recently become a full-time resident of Rehoboth again, or not again, but of Delaware again. Full support of them. They're a wonderful family. Looking forward to the fact that there's no more renters, and looking forward to retiring with them. So we are in full support of them, and I'm speaking for my husband, although I probably shouldn't be. But, I am. But thank you very much, and we look forward to their approval.
All right, thank you, thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Ann Bailey, and I live at 62 Park Avenue,
Ms.
across the
Bailey,
street.
do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony given in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I want to say I'm in support of the request. I've lived at Park Avenue. I built my house in 1996 and have been a full-time resident since 2012. I've watched the children grow up and do what all the kids do up and down Park Avenue, ride their bikes and enjoy the beach and have fun, and they're great neighbors, and so, you know, we're very much in support.
Can I ask Ms. Bailey, because I'm going to put her on the spot, but Ms. Bailey, you're also a realtor, right?
I am. I'm actually a commercial real estate broker, but I am a broker.
Okay. You've seen the plans, you understand, you know, based on your experience as a realtor, do you think that this project would have any adverse impact on the community or the neighboring properties?
Oh, none at all. Like you mentioned, the view from Park Avenue remains the same. So, you know, I think it's probably, you know, a good proposal given the limitations that the owners have with the size of the lot. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate
Thank you.
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
All right, at this point, I'm going to close down the public
Can I ask
portion.
one more question?
Absolutely.
Vince, you had said a few minutes ago something that maybe I just missed. You said the new dormer.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I
that's,
hadn't heard that mentioned, and I didn't see it anywhere, and
that's
maybe
because
I missed
it's,
it.
that's something that's already gone through with Matt. That doesn't require variance.
Right.
So, yeah, no, if you
But
look.
it's part of the plan.
Yeah, it's part of the plan. So this is the house from the rear, and you
Uh-huh.
can see there's actually the way the roof is now, because that's all living space up there now.
Mhm.
So there's just shed dormers over here, and then, but it's within the existing footprint, and then this is the dormer here.
Right.
You can kind of see a little better here on the sides.
Mhm.
So I didn't go into that only because
Sure.
it doesn't drive the variance, but yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's all.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't have anything else. Thank you, Barry.
Okay, so we're going to close down the public portion of the meeting and discuss among ourselves. So at this point, I think, Edie, I'll start with you.
Well, I'm in favor. I'm torn about this, but I'm leaning towards approval. But I think that if we are going to grant the variance, I'm concerned about the 39, 40-ish, whatever, we don't know exact number, running feet in perpetuity. Because we don't, these are all wonderful neighbors, they all love each other and everything, kumbaya, but things change over time. And the city has a side yard and backyard and rear yard variant or side setbacks for a purpose. So the only way I would be interested in supporting it would be if it is tied to the house, this house. I don't know if we can do that. That it has to be this house in this way, so that if this house is changed, taken down, no matter when the year, as we all know, all of these places are changed, that the variance is not going to stay forever, that somebody can have a 40-foot wall of anything, because we know if we grant the variance, they could put up somebody can put up anything
Exactly.
in that space that's that long, forever. And so I'm not keen to support that kind of openness. So I don't know how we might phrase it, but I'm sure interested in what you folks think.
Hey, Edie, I'm going to, do you have something, Fred?
So, Matt, if the variance was granted without any reference to what was offered, and I would point out on the record, it was offered by the applicant that we tie the variance to the house.
Kind of like I think with the Wagner one, I think that was the case on that house that was being rotated, if I remember, we did the same.
No,
sort of
it
thing.
wasn't.
Oh, it wasn't? I couldn't remember.
Well, certainly the basis of the grant of that variance, and this one would be the existence of the configuration of the house. I mean, it was an important component of why the variance was granted. But if this house, 50 years from now or 30 years from now were to be demolished, the new owners would be required to comply with zoning, or with the zoning restrictions that were then applicable? Or would you take the position that this variance would allow the subsequent owners a larger building envelope than?
I think we have a situation here that requires a variance that would go with the structure. I know that the variance goes with the land, but once you remove that structure, your nonconformity is gone. And so then when you remove that nonconformity, you are not allowed to place that nonconformity back unless it was removed by an act of God.
Exactly. Yep.
So we would review it as a brand-new application, and all codes present at that time would be adhered to.
So I will give Mr. Robertson a chance to comment on that, because he did say that he would consider tying the variance to the house, and I can see that that's attractive to at least one member. It's generally, it's a concern to me in defense of the building inspector, who from time to time, it might not be Matt 10 years from now, it might be somebody else. They're not going to have any recollection of this proceeding. What's in the file may or may not be completely clear, and could lead to misunderstanding. So I would like to avoid tying variances to people always, and to properties, but I think it's kind of understood that this variance is going to run with the house as it presently is configured, and won't run in perpetuity if the house were to be demolished.
So,
No.
I'm sorry, finish.
No, well,
I would just want a simple question. So if they tear the house down, then we're gonna have 10 foot on one side, 6 foot on the other side. The new house would have to be built according,
Or it could be 8 and 8.
and, or,
Yeah.
correct, aggregate.
unless lightning struck the house, right?
Or the code du jour, whatever that would be at that time,
Correct,
right?
and meaning this setback allowance variance would not continue forward.
I believe that to be correct, yeah. I don't think we would view
I
that
would
as a.
Okay, thank you. And I do want to,
Put that
yeah,
too.
I want to just follow Edie. That length of that porch does bother me. That's why I was asking the question
Right.
of, I'm kind of partially in favor of this, but taking the porch back just to the bump out, because if you have to put an ADA pathway to get around to a electronic lift, I kind of agree with you. You try not to put a lift in the front, but if you put them on the back, you're gonna have to put a path. So we're gonna be back here probably for a sidewalk to go around to the back. Yeah, I mentioned the bathroom window there. It's kind of like, it's the same egress point off that porch as it would be all the way back at 40 feet. It would still be a couple steps down. So I'm kind of like, in between. I like this proposal, but there's some things I'm not crazy about in this proposal. So that's kind of where I'm at now. Mark, you have some thoughts?
I'm looking at this as a little bit different practical difficulty, and that's that we have an older vacation house being made into a full-time residence. And I think it's reasonable to assume that you'd have a reasonable bathroom on the first floor. So I really have no problem at all with the bathroom situation. The porch, like I say, I cannot in my mind justify needing that big of a porch, except for the cosmetic reasons. But maybe the cosmetic reasons are enough. So that's what I'm thinking about.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Jan?
I'm okay for the bathroom. That's why I asked about the porch, because I didn't see another door. I mean, I live right near there, and I didn't see another door to the house, and I figured that's how they came in. But, lots of us would love sheds, and there's a shed there, there's a big patio there, and, my bathroom window was on the outside of the first floor, which was a porch, and it's now enclosed. So, I don't have a problem with the bathroom window being on the outside of a house.
Well, not on the outside of the house, but on a porch.
Oh, on a porch.
Yeah.
Well, I had it on a porch, so I can't, we
Okay.
never opened it, and it was high up, so, but I worried about the porch, and that's why I had, talked to Matt, and because I really wasn't quite sure in the verbiage whether it was, how it was. So I didn't think it was a porch at first. I thought it was a bathroom, and now I think it should stay a bathroom.
Like, can you clarify that? The bump out is a bathroom.
I know, and I think, but I don't think that needs to be a bathroom with a porch around it.
Oh,
I don't
thank you.
see, I don't see why, I mean, it's nice to have, but it's not necessary, and there's no handicap. And if they ended up having a wheelchair someday, then they can work directly with the building inspector. They don't even need to come back for a variance for a ramp. Isn't that correct, Matt? Didn't we learn that at one of our other meetings? If they had to run a ramp?
If the ramp is temporary in nature, we generally would not require a variance from them, but if it was a permanently built ramp and it encroached any side setbacks, lot coverages, we would force that variance, yes.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Bill?
Just one clarification to play lawyer with Fred. I went to the state, what our authority is under state law, and it says that granting of a variance that will not be contrary to the public interest where owing to special conditions or exceptional situations. So I think if we were to write in to this that the variance is granted owing to the special condition of this house as currently constructed, then I think that in terms of in the future, they would not be able to say they can build in that setback with a new house. So I think that I would sort of use language like that to prevent from running with the land as opposed to the special circumstance of the house.
Right, meaning that we may not need to add language to this approval if we were to grant it that we haven't added in the past to
Well,
others?
Well, I think we should add
I think
it.
we should.
Absolutely.
I think we should.
Well, that was a question.
You know what I'm saying, but I
what
think
he's
what I would
saying,
do is
too.
I just simply say, owing to the exceptional
Exceptional
Right, like the
circumstances.
state,
Of that.
Yeah,
exactly.
of this.
I wrote
this
it down.
house.
One at
I
a
wrote
time,
it down.
please.
Yeah, I'm bothered by this because I don't know where we draw a line in terms of, we face this, so many times as Jan said with people asking for sheds or other things that I'm still torn as to whether we've met the exceptional practical difficulty of what is, as folks say, a 40-foot run into the setback and additional lot coverage, both of which are important under our the law that we're bound by. So that's why I asked Vince what the exceptional practical difficulty is, whether there are other things that can be done that may be more expensive in terms of improving the house to be a permanent residence without having to extend into the setback that is, I think Jan has it, Edie has right, it's literally half the distance of the property. Because I looked at the plot, and I think it's solidly 40 of the 80 feet will be in the setback.
That's why I was kind of proposing the additional porch would be maybe, what, 8 foot, 10 foot, up to the bump out of the bathroom. So you're giving a minimum porch increase in the blue, stops at the bump out, that minimizes that 40-foot run of, a need, as Mark said, the need for the want for the porch, not a true need. I mean, I applaud them on building the ADA compliant bathroom. I think that's a great idea. But again, our variances are supposed to be minimal. And I mean, that's kind of where I'm leaning. That's what my head's at.
Well, I would support the bump out for the bathroom. And that's where I am.
And no porch addition, period.
No, I don't think so. You're extending a nonconformity, and I don't see the need.
Okay.
This would be porch, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about those and what I'm pointing at, if Exhibit B, just so you can understand what I'm looking at. I don't know, Vince, can you put that up there, please?
Only because I'd probably have to log in. I don't have your
Oh.
exhibit B. Let me hit.
Matt,
If
what's,
I hand it to you, can you just put it up there?
Yeah, I can put it over.
Matt,
There you go.
You're asking a lot of Vince right
Yeah.
now. He's not happy about this.
And if you could switch it to the.
All right, now we have to zoom on this guy. There we go.
Yeah.
I'm talking from that old staircase in blue to the edge of the bump out for the new ADA bathroom. And that would square that off, and then
Right there, you mean, like that?
correct, that little, and then, again, it would shorten, if a sidewalk had to be put in for a wheelchair, it would shorten that. A lift could still go in the back like the applicant was wanting. Again, I'm not here to design it, but it's kind of, I'm trying to get it to minimize the variance.
can I ask Matt, what is, does that, I'm sorry, here, moved off the mic. What is the distance that we're removing then in the setback if we follow what Barry just said? If we just go to if it's just the bump out for the bathroom, what the blue part that's.
There's no indication of
I
what
know.
that would be
There are a lot
on that document.
Yeah, there are a lot of non-measurements here.
Agree, Edie.
So what you're talking about is the distance of the depicted bathroom.
This here, this much.
The distance.
That's the length, correct, Fred?
Yeah, from here to here.
Yeah, but this distance, which is the depth of the bathroom, is what you're.
No,
I thought
side
Barry
to
is
side, the
talking
side
about
yard.
this
we're
right
To
here.
not
talking
have
the
the
same
40-foot or so
Oh, okay, because I can't see what he was telling you.
It's that distance.
encroachment on the side yards.
Okay, so this is tough on Ann. We're saying this and that, and
Yeah,
we're
I'm sorry.
pointing to things that
Sorry,
are
Ann.
in our laps instead, or on the table. But my understanding of what our chairman described was to authorize this area,
That is correct, Fred.
this square until it reaches that point, and to
Eliminate
eliminate that
that
area.
porch.
So just so, maybe if I can describe so we know what you're saying, is that allow the porch to extend to the southernmost portion of that new bump out.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh.
Would he need space for steps then to go down from there?
Yes.
There are steps right there in the picture.
They'd have to put in new steps.
They had to put in new
And
steps, so we
we're
may have to
okay
leave a
with
couple
that.
of feet for that, that's what I'm saying.
But again, I'm not here to design, but I'm
The
just trying
steps
to.
aren't covered.
Steps aren't covered in a variance.
Yeah, I'm just trying to minimize.
Mr.
the
Chairman,
need for
we would be
variance.
fine with that, so, for what it's worth.
Okay.
It's all
All right.
my clients right now,
All right.
even though the record's closed, sorry.
Thoughts, guys?
So are you going to make?
Well,
I can't make a motion.
Oh, okay.
no, he can't. Chair can't do that.
So is everyone on the same page as to what we might be talking about?
We're just trying to figure out how we can put that in a motion with not knowing what the square footage is.
And there are lots of, or even
So-
the dimensions. There's
so
so
Matt-
many dimensions missing here.
So square footage wise, do you understand where we are, Matt, you think?
I do.
So square footage wise, would we need a variance from the lot coverage? If the modified approval is to extend the existing screen porch back so far as to the point where it adjoins the bump out of the new bathroom?
Could somebody go and, could I go and point to it?
I was going to point, I was going to
To
walk up
say,
there.
so we're all, make sure with it, is that allowed, Ann, or how can we help you, Ann?
Here's a pointer.
Right
on the
table.
I can't see this there. Oh,
Can I just draw on it? I mean,
Yeah.
With your finger or the pen there.
Yeah, right. Yep. Exactly,
that would all be porch now.
right.
Right.
It looks roughly about 5 feet.
Yeah.
so
And then keep the bump out for the bathroom.
And keep the bump out for the bathroom.
And the bathroom would be then
I
the
don't see it
totality
that
of,
far.
Vince, you might have that measurement on the documents for the construction drawings that you had in your presentation?
Yeah, but couldn't we just grant a variance if needed
Certainly.
with
Yes.
respect to the lot coverage?
Yes.
To the, to,
To
idea.
accommodate what
Yes.
we've
Good
approved.
idea, yeah.
yeah, and that way we don't have to guess and don't have to come back.
Yeah.
So just,
No,
What's
that's
that?
right.
Yes.
Yes,
we know
yes,
that.
yes,
We know that.
yes,
So-
yes, sir.
so just, I'm sorry, please. Continue. So just so that we're totally on the same page, if we're looking at this diagram, the part that we are not including is the part that doesn't have anything, like, it doesn't have the dot into it or any measurement from it. It happens to have a, right?
That's correct, and just so,
Can you could you put a pen, just to, please, Vince,
so
or I'll
he-
do it, I'll do it.
Well, what he did was, he indicated the area
That's where.
that we would be granting, and then you asked him to indicate the area that we wouldn't be granting.
Well, so that the but the
And the
bump out.
bathroom.
Yeah, the bump out.
So that's the part we're not
That's what we're
including.
not including.
Right.
But you just marked it the same. I wanted you to put,
No, one's red, one's blue.
One person,
yeah, I
please.
see. No, I see.
No, I can't see it.
Oh.
That's why-
Hold on, everyone.
Okay. So the part that you just, well, crosshatched
I just
in
showed
red.
it.
is,
I just want to make
i-
sure.
in red
It's right
is
here.
what we're not including.
Right there.
that's what it sounds like.
So essentially, as we look at this blue area that used to be a rectangle, it's now an L that we would be, approving an L, a long L against the house and a short L bottom. Is that correct?
That's
Is
correct.
everybody,
Yes,
that's what everybody's looking at? Is that,
small addition to the porch.
And I would add too, that we can clarify this, or Mr. Townsend can, in the written decision as well. And just one caveat on this, not an issue, just,
don't do it.
we didn't put square footages because we weren't dealing with FAR variances. You know, we were trying to keep this as straightforward as possible with the side yard setback variances, knowing that it was gonna run the length of the house. So that's why there's not all these additional measurements or square footage, because we weren't dealing with
Understood.
those. So
okay.
I don't want you to think we were trying to hide something. That just seemed irrelevant, you know, when we started this.
Very good.
Okay, motion from someone, please?
Bill, how about you making the motion? You're good at it.
Thanks very much, it's really great. Move to approve, well, let me do it
Well, you want to
conceptually
have
first.
the state code in there too, remember?
Yeah, the Let's talk about it conceptually, and then I'll try to put
Yeah,
it
okay.
into legal language. It would be to approve the proposed bathroom and the extension of the existing porch up to the southern edge of the bathroom. Okay. And we would be granting a variance with respect to the setback, yard setback, side yard setback, and to the extent necessary, lot coverage, with the variance being due to the exceptional situation with respect to this home, and the variance limited to the continued existence of this home.
Well said.
Second.
Okay.
Now he's got to say it again. That's the hard part.
Aye.
No, he's,
Okay.
Aye.
No,
And
Fred
you-
decided that that's a motion.
that's a motion.
And the reasons that we've met all 4 quick checks, including the 4th one after we've made the revisions to reduce the extent of the overage of the porch.
I agree as well. I say aye to the motion. I think we've hit the quick checks, and by condensing and clarifying some issues that were a little muddy, I'm comfortable saying yes.
Thank you. Jan?
Yes,
Okay.
for the reasons stated.
Okay. Bill?
Yes, I believe that they've met the quick check factor, including the exceptional practical difficulty given the size of the home and the size of the lot.
Okay, thank you. And I am going to vote in favor of it, and I apologize for trying to design here, but I was trying to set the minimum amount of variance needed. So it's approved, 5-0. Thank you for coming, and thanks everyone for sticking with us. It's almost dinner time. Thanks. Okay, and the board, thank you.
Yeah. Do you know what
And
time the library closes?
you guys are all done. You're done. We have one more thing to do on the board.
Oh, Edie will know.
Yes, please. Thanks. We have one more thing.
Never mind, go ahead. No, go ahead.
All right, and keep the recording going. We're not adjourned yet. Okay. We're good. Okay. Thank you. All right, we have the Board of Adjustment rules to approve and vote on, if everyone's willing.
So I think everyone has consented to the rules
Now-
electronically.
And I just have one question. I don't know why I missed it, but I haven't seen it. But I understand that Mark added, and I support, that if a variance impacts somebody on a different street, that they must be notified.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
the
That's
rules
all.
indicate that if there's another lot impacted other than the lot where the variance was granted, that could be fairly said to be part of the development project, that property would be posted as well. Yes.
Okay. So we have to motion to approve the,
I move that we approve the revised minutes.
I second.
no, not minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry, not minutes, excuse me.
The
I retract
rules,
that.
the rules.
Rules.
The rules of
I'm so
procedure.
sorry, excuse me.
And
That
I
was my error.
second
All right,
approving the
all right,
rules of
all in
procedure.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And and that motion's going to allow perhaps myself and the city secretary to sign that for the
Okay.
record.
And Fred, one last question. You weren't here in the beginning. The NOD for the Bellhaven did go out, correct?
Right. Well, no,
That's
it's.
it,
We're
right?
signing
it,
it now.
right.
You just signed it. So just a quick motion and second, if you could vote the notice of decision to be filed as of today's date, I would
Okay.
appreciate it, just for the record.
Yeah, I thought you were doing the electronically.
We
with
tried
it.
to, but we ended up getting so close to the meeting that we decided to just
Okay.
do it on the meeting.
All right.
All right.
So make a motion, please.
What's the date?
25th.
All right, I move that we approve the Bellhaven decision on 11/25 and 2024 and file it.
Okay, second.
Thank you.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did you want me to read this one thing that, in the rules?
No, I want you to tell me what time the library closes on Monday.
Seven
right.
o'clock.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a book to
And
return.
do we have any cases for January? Right now?
Yes?
Look at Matt.
Matt's?
Not officially submitted, but rumor mill.
Okay. All right. Everyone.
And that's January 14th, right?
13th.
13th, Friday.
That is correct.
January 13th.
Okay. Happy holidays, everyone. We are adjourned.
Happy
You
holidays.
too.
Thank you.
All right.